So I just want to talk about the effectiveness of the unit. Well, something you said just popped this in my head. It's a story that I will never forget. I remember this like it was yesterday. And I don't think too many units out there can boast about this. In fact, I would say it's very few. But our hours back then were Monday through Friday, basically, with the weekends off, right? We had come in on a Saturday. I don't have a clue what we were there for. I don't remember. And we were specifically told that we couldn't chase dope that day. We had to do something else, right? But to Grant's credit, Grant said, no, go do what you guys do, right? So we make an arrest. And this guy, when we had him in cuffs, it was a good dope arrest. He literally was wailing, crying. And he kept saying over and over again, everybody out here knows you guys don't work on the weekends. Everybody knows that. What are you doing here on a Saturday, right? And he just kept saying that over and over again. And I still remember that, like that was how effective we were, not only in police circles, but in criminal circles. They were talking about, don't do anything Monday through Friday. You got to wait until the weekend or the evenings to do whatever it is you have to do. But that, to me, that just shows how effective and good we were at what we did.
Everybody's got different personalities, strengths, weaknesses, and I always kind of use this example with my guys, no matter where I'm at, is that there's only one NFL quarterback for one team, right? So not everybody can be the Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. Not everybody can be the Micah Parsons, right? But everybody's here, and everybody has a role.
We would go by the same location 20 times a week, and nothing would be out. Doors would be closed, nobody in the driveway. But the 21st time, doors wide open, guys sitting on the front steps, or you catch a car in the driveway, a guy's walking from the backyard, and game on.
If you've never worked on a small team before, the thing you can take away from it is it doesn't stop when you leave. So we are tied into those phones. When we go home after work, we're still texting each other. We're on the same wavelength. We're talking about the same stuff. We're planning what we're going to do the next day. It really is a family. You are tied in a way that it's hard to explain, that it doesn't turn off. It's a part of your life.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation.
Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community. And now we want to give them a platform to hear their incredible stories.
We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us.
Our community is small, but it is strong.
We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes.
But together we can grow.
We can heal.
And we can learn from those mistakes.
And together we can bridge the divide.
In the far reaches of Southeast Dallas, an area known as God's Country, the Dallas Police Department's Southeast CRT Crime Reduction Team moves with purpose. This is the front line, where officers confront fast-shifting crime, tight-knit communities, and the kind of challenges that demand both grit and compassion. What sets the Southeast CRT apart isn't just the tactics, it's their family-like fabric. The team is built from a mix of bold personalities, sharp instincts, and different life experiences that blended into a rare kind of unity. They argue, they laugh, they push each other, they make fun of each other, and they show up for one another the way only a true family does. Over time, their relentless presence on the streets built a reputation that carried weight. Word traveled fast through the corners, trap houses, and back streets. The CRT was out, and they were not the team that anyone wanted to cross. Drug dealers and gangbangers knew that when the Southeast CRT convoyed through the streets, their day was not going to be easy. Combating the drug war is always an uphill battle. You have to take the small victories when you can and take solace in knowing that maybe, just maybe, you gave some citizens somewhere, only for a short amount of time, some peace and satisfaction. Here in one of the Dallas' toughest and most fierce loyal corners, these officers come together to bring stability, trust, and hope to the people they serve. Today we're sitting down with some of the old school members of the Southeast CRT. Welcome back. It's going to be a different type of episode, but it's going to be a fun one, and it's going to be like a wild ass circus. But we're gonna try to tame everybody. I want to welcome on co-host Kent Wolverton is here.
Thanks for having me back.
Kristen King is back on the mic. It's been a minute.
I'm excited to be here.
We also have very special guest co-host, first time to the mic, first time to the room, Danny Canete.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I'm here with Brian Candelaria. He's back.
What up?
Brand new Ranger Master. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
We got Mark Bacon. He's back to the mic.
Thank you.
It's been a while. It's been a couple of years, I think, since you've been on.
Yeah. I had a good time last time.
Yeah, it was fun. This is gonna be better. So we got Danny Canete here. Well, we all got together because we all met while at Southeast and doing a specific type of job, and that's chasing dope. And that's all we kind of cut our teeth at Southeast. And I've heard Mark and Danny talk about this. That was probably the best time of our career and the funnest time we've had. So this episode is going to be like a kind of a round table of how we met and how we started working on that team under Sergeant Rob Grant, and just tell some more stories, tell some goofy stories, and just kind of talk about a little behind the scenes of that team.
And even tell how the start of the team formed. I guess how did the CR teams actually start?
Yeah, let's get into that. So in 2010, then Chief Brown, he wanted to do an initiative. It's called Operation Hornet's Nest, and he wanted every substation to have a CRT, crime reduction team, and a days and deep night team for each one. And the early SOP for those teams was investigating street level narcotics. Now, other CRTs at other divisions, they messing with drugs made a lot of people queasy, and so they didn't go that route. They did fugitives, hunted for fugitives, and did other kind of like just. It was very like focused.
There was burglars. A lot of teams focused on burglars.
Yep, yeah. But the early SOP literally was for us to investigate drug sales.
It was an initiative. Is how it started. And the initiative, like you said, was Chief Brown. He was a 3-star. He was right under Kunkel. We still had Kunkel.
No, I think he was the 4-star. Yeah,
was he the 4-star?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought he hadn't left yet, but
No, he was a chief.
He was a big chief. Okay, so he was a big chief. But the initiative was to target narcotics activity under the auspice of narcotics activity has a nexus that connects to all crime. And so the idea was most of the crime is driven by repeat offenders, and specifically repeat offenders involved in drug dealing and their customer base who are also criminals. So the initiative was actually supposed to be knock and talks.
Yes.
The select personnel actually got sent to knock and talk training, but that was primarily the protocol we were supposed to use is just do knock and talk. So back then it was your team would go up, knock on the door, there would be a recording as evidence, and we would gain consent to search these homes for narcotics. And maybe at some stations that would work okay in certain personnel, but I think Southeast being what it is, that's a little odd to knock on someone's door and ask to search their home for drugs. Not only that, but most of the drug activity isn't a residence, it's a trap house.
True. Yeah, nobody actually lives there. It's not a residence. So, Danny, can you talk about you joined the Southeast CRT under Rob Grant before I did. So you were on the first iteration of that team. Can you talk about how that went, how the selection process, and why you actually joined that team?
Well, I don't know if there really was a selection process. It was, I think the lieutenant at the time, Stephen Winters, and some sergeants were picking personnel, and to be honest, I was probably the very last on the list. Other officers were getting picked, and I was hearing about this, and they were getting the phone calls, and no one was saying anything to me. So when I was asking some of these other officers about this team, a lot of them were saying they were turning it down. because they didn't want the day change or the hours change, which at the time was actually good. It was, I think, weekends off, or at least Sunday off, Sunday, Monday off, and then working days, like a 9 to 5 or a 10 to 6. But I was someone who probably had a reputation at Southeast of being a shit magnet, and so I think a lot of supervisors would stay away from me. They didn't want that, so I wasn't necessarily someone that they wanted for this team. But I think enough people had said no that they eventually got down to the bottom of the list, and I was at the bottom of the list. And that was January 2010. And I remember the first week we started work, it was snowing, and that was unusual for here. And so the first week of work was slow as we were figuring out where we were going to have desks and who was on the team and how we were going to do things and pulling cars and all of that. It was just kind of an admin week while we had all that snow.
Did you know of any of the other teammates when you got there?
I knew them all, right?
Okay.
Because we were all Southeast, and a lot of us worked on the same watch. A lot of us were on deep nights.
Sergeant Grant and Lieutenant Winters were both deep nights at that point, weren't they?
No, so Rob Grant had been over Fifth Watch, which was days 10 to 6. And the funny thing is, I actually started training. First phase and fourth phase was underneath him on Fifth Watch. So he was on days. Ron was days. His twin brother, Winters, was days. The days lieutenant then.
For years, the Grant brothers were kind of a deep night staple.
Yeah,
they would, there was a core group of veteran sergeants that were the whole lineup was pretty strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Grant asked me because I had worked for him actually when he was at Third Watch at Southeast, and I worked for Ron at some point when he was at Third Watch, and I knew them back when I started. They were all on deep nights when I was on training, so I've known them my entire career up to that point. But he asked me if I'd be interested, and I was on Third Watch at the time, and I was already doing this type of work anyway, and working with another little group, and I didn't want to work days, and also I really didn't know any of the players that were going to be on this team, so I just turned it down. I wasn't interested at that point.
It was a typical cop negativity, like,
oh yeah,
I'm not going to do that bullshit.
Well, I don't know if you remember,
everyone was turning it down. I'm not gonna do that.
Well, they also didn't know how long it was going to last.
Or they're going to make me work a certain way. I'm not going to do that because I do it my way.
That's true. Well, so I decided something happened on Third Watch at Southeast at the time, and I can't remember what it was, but it was October of 2010. I went to Grant and I said, "Hey, if you have any openings on that, I might be interested."
Oh, okay, because he made it sound like it was his idea.
No,
he came to me and
well, he initially asked.
I'm thinking about asking Joe King to come on the team. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well,
were you guys? Was this CRT at the time?
Yeah, so the initiative had ended that summer, and so they decided to keep it. They decided certain stations would keep it in place. So the southern stations, most of them kept it, and then everyone kind of got to do it their own way. So it kind of veered off from the knock and talk. So you had some stations that were heavy with chasing burglars, and then you just had us at Southeast that were really still focusing on drugs.
Well, back then there were specific areas that had different types of crime, right? So at Southeast, a lot of our stuff was drug driven, but we did have a big time burglary problem, but that was mostly, you would see it on Second Watch, where you had people who went to work or were at school, so their homes were vacant, and then the houses would be broken into. And we had a group that was really good about handling that, but they didn't do the drug side of things. They were more interested in catching the burglars than the guys that were selling the drugs. So I think each division got the clearance because they realized every division has a little bit different crime focus on what you want at your division. So the reins were loosened a little bit as far as what they wanted out of the groups, and they let each commander figure out what they wanted.
Well, yeah, so that also, like South Central, Fellini was over the deployment at that time, and I can't remember who the CRT.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, they focused on not burglars, but warrants and fugitives out there. So they were kind of doing a mini metro of their own.
Yeah, you really saw personality with each team CRT team from each patrol station. You know, they had their own work, their own personalities, their own mission. So in that aspect, it was pretty neat for the department.
So, Joe, you mentioned before about how a lot of teams tend to stay away from the drugs or don't want to chase drugs. What is it about drug chasing that scares people away?
Well, historically, anytime you mess with drug, and the phrase that everybody likes to use is chasing dope. Okay, so historically, even going back to before I started, there was years of issues with people doing that, because we in Dallas here we had the Cruiser and Bruiser scandal, where these two officers were going out and they were basically, if you see the movie Training Day, that's kind of what they were doing.
So I'm going to make you pause just for a second.
Okay.
I want to ask Kristen something. When you got on the department and got out to Southeast, were you told about chasing dope and how it was bad and it could ruin your career?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, they would say, you know, people would say, don't chase dope. You know, that's how people get in trouble. And I think that is true, because if you're not doing it right, and a lot of people kind of don't know how to do that or don't know what they're doing, and then they will go back and work backwards. And that's where you're always really going to get in trouble. And if you don't have someone to teach you how to work the correct way, it's really difficult to learn that on your own. So I think that is why people kind of stay away from it. And that's something that I never learned how to do, really.
There's a lot of truth to that, but it's also, you're targeting people at that point, right? You know who the dope dealers are and you're targeting them. You're basically taking the fight to them instead of reacting to whatever you get called for as a police officer. So once you start to deal with the same people over and over again, you might arrest them a couple of times. You might just run into them a few times at the dope house and they have to cut them loose because you don't have enough to arrest them that time. That's when they start to get upset about it. They figure out who you are. They start to complain on you. That's when you start getting in trouble, because it doesn't matter if you did everything right at that point. If they go to internal affairs, the history of internal affairs was you didn't mark out, so now you're in trouble. Or you didn't complete your checkout sheet, so you're in trouble for that now. There was a lot of stuff that they would go back and look at, not really dependent on what you did in that situation, but over that day or that week or whatever. So that's when officers would get in trouble, because the players on the dope side were coming in and basically saying, hey, this guy's bothering me. And so then they start to look at everything you've ever done, and then they go back after you.
Well, it causes a lot of people just to throw up their hands and say, screw this. I mean, it ain't worth the fight.
That's the hard part of this. You come on. Luckily, I had experience when I came on the Dallas Police Department, right? So, but you come in and you quickly realize, you start saying, yeah, I might want to do this, go down this dope angle, right? It's easy, it's fun. We make a lot of very good arrests, felony arrests, right? But there is nobody to help you to what you're saying. We don't do a good job of that. It really wasn't until I met you, Joe, that I really took it to that next level on why we did what we did, what gave us the legal authority to do what we did, right? And then you could actually start, intelligently talking about it with people and combat that. Hey, you're going to go to jail because you're chasing dope, right? That's all I was told when I came on the department.
Yeah, chasing dope will get you fired.
Yep.
So for the listeners, everyone's probably going to think of Joe and know Joe always as the wellness guy. But for everyone else at the table, we just have a totally different perception of Joe. And Joe's reputation was the dope chaser of Southeast. Him and specifically one other partner he had who's no longer with us, named Pat Starr. So when Grant asked me what my idea was if Joe came to the team, I know Grant was taking a temperature of the small team we had. Would they accept Joe? Would they take criticism, or would they take advice and instruction from someone who's senior and understands this? And I didn't really care what the rest of the team thought. I wanted him on there because I knew his reputation, and I had chased dope for a couple of years as a rookie and done it my own way, and I knew Joe was just so much better at it, and we would greatly benefit from having him on the team. So when Grant asked me, I was, we got to get this guy on. I didn't think he'd actually ever want to play with us peons over here on this team.
Right.
Joe, what were you doing before that this was your reputation?
So I'm going to throw this thing in real quick, too. So he disappeared for a while, right? He comes back, and Pat Starr, who had left Southeast, went to Northwest, comes back as well. And then these two team back up again and are just destroying Southeast. I remember one month they got 26 guns off the street. And I remember asking Pat, what are you doing that you got 26 guns off the street in less than a month? And Pat's just kind of like, oh, well, we just do our thing. You know, we just go out
Shit
there.
happens.
Pat didn't keep track of numbers at all. That was all Joe.
Oh, of course.
Pat didn't care how many guns he got, but Joe was like, nope, it was 26. Right at the buzzer, 26.
Well, I got lucky whenever I hired on back in, in '97. I got Southeast, and there was a small group of veteran officers that were actually doing it. The Mark Terry, who left and went to DEA, Troy Klinglesmith, he ended up ending his career in K-9. Dale Baugh, Bob
Man.
Becker, young Mike Mata, Joe Morin, and Pat. Now, Pat was a class ahead of me. We all kind of got into Southeast, and we started working and learning under these officers. I mean, it was wild. And then Sergeant Jack Misak put together a little unit on evenings and had Sunny Monday. Because back then, folks listening, you were going to be on evenings or deep nights for quite a while. With Sunny Monday, you would be thrilled to have. It's not like it is now.
Yeah, I was told, get ready, you're going to do at least 7 years at Southeast before you can ever find a job outside.
And there was no bid. You didn't get you were on a list.
You were stuck there until someone died and you got their spot.
Yeah, you weren't
Kristen's
moving.
laughing, but that's real.
You weren't moving around. And so I learned under these guys, but I heard all this stuff too. And I was young, and I was 22. I was stupid. I didn't care about. I wasn't worried about getting in trouble because I knew the people that I worked with, or I felt that they knew what they were doing, and we were wild. I mean, and then 3080 started, and we all kind of worked together for many years. And I remember my old partner Valdez and I, we were the only ones that liked to work the Oak Cliff part, right? And because everybody else went to South Dallas because it was plentiful and it was busy, and it was actually easier than messing with the Oak Cliff, because Oak Cliff had a weird combination of residential and the geography sucked, and it was. But the biggest drug arrest that I've had have actually been in the Oak Cliff area.
Big dope in Oak Cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of stash houses out there. So I learned under them, but I got injured, multiple injuries, and I was out for a while, and I came back. And really, the only person that was left of the old crew was Aaron's. And I did not want to get back into that type of work. I was like coasting, and there was actually a time I did not want to get back into it
For maybe 20 minutes.
Man, I really, because he was working with a bunch of guys that I did not know or I've never heard of.
But you'd see these guys doing, you're like, these stupids, and then that would make you want to get back in it.
It would, and I will say this, that people talk about being watched and being criticized. We had I'm not going to mention her name, but we had a particular deputy chief at Southeast that hated people that mess with drugs. She hated dope chasers. She actually assigned, and I found this out later, she actually assigned a sergeant to review Pat and I's arrest reports, see if there's any discrepancy. I mean, this is a deputy chief looking at two POs to see if they were doing it right. And a sergeant pulled me aside and kind of said, hey, just letting you know. And I had the decision to make whether I was just going to lay it down and be lazy, because that's what a lot of people do. They just throw up their hands and say, nah, fuck this. I'm not going to, it is not worth it. It is not worth it to deal with this stress and headache. But I'm going to go on the record and thank that deputy chief for making me become a better officer and a better report writer. I started studying law, which I did not do with the old crew of Mata and Scott McDonald and Pat, early days of Pat and Mark Terry. We knew the basics. But when I started, because of that deputy chief, I started studying the case law. I could actually quote it. And a lot of the arrest reports, I would quote it. And I would make those arrest reports so airtight and so complex that anybody that reading them, they'd get a headache. So that's what I started doing. And I started working with this group that Aaron's introduced me to. And we started rocking out there on Third Watch. And I was having fun. And that's one of the reasons I already had doing this type of work, you have to trust the people you're working with. And you have to, because you're doing very high-risk things. And like I've already said, you're going to there's a chance to be complained on or get into shootings or get into stuff that could be perceived in a negative light. So whenever I was first asked by Grant to go to this new team, I was like, I don't know any of them. I don't want to start over. I'm having a lot of fun here. But something happened, and I really can't remember, that made me decide, I'm going to try this.
Thought of me.
Yeah, I thought Ryan. I said, man, I got to eventually work with that guy soon. Mark, this is for you. So were you in disruption when this started?
Disruption, yeah.
Okay.
So I was probably 09, went to disruption. Me and my old partner, who I was academy classmates with.
Roach?
Yeah, Roach, great officer. We went to disruption, and it was a great time. Like, for the listeners, it was created as a unit that basically did what CRT later would do. All we did was go to the most violent spots in the city, all over the city, and just went in there as a disrupting force, hence the name Disruption, right? So a lot of dope arrests. Did get some training out of that, some good search and seizure, that kind of thing, but just kind of the tip of the iceberg type stuff, so we wouldn't really get in trouble.
Was it out of this office? Were y'all here?
Yeah, we were out of headquarters. And the original group, was very large. I think they had at one time 60, maybe more, over 2 shifts. But by the time we made it there, they only had the evening shift. Late night shift was available. So I had a great time there. And then there was a 2-star, I think it was a 2-star at the time, Cato. Great chief when he was here.
Yeah.
He was kind of in our chain of command. He would come down and address a detail every once in a while. But he comes down and he addresses us one day and he says, hey, I just want to address some rumors, but you guys are going to be disbanded, right? And it was like a gut punch. I was like, I'm having so much fun here. I don't want to have to go back to Southeast, because what Danny was saying earlier was that was kind of like, you didn't really get to move around. You could hold what your seniority would allow you to hold, and you didn't get a chance to really participate in anything else, right? So disruption was great for a young officer to learn how to do this. And I really didn't want to go back to call answering because I was having so much fun doing this.
Now, did you get a reason why it was disbanding?
What you said earlier. So Chief Brown had made this statement that he was creating this team to hold the deputy chiefs who were in charge of each subdivision around the city of Dallas. He was going to hold them accountable, because apparently what he was getting in their CompStat meetings was, hey, we can't get disruption down here all the time, and we can't fight this crime, sir, so what can we do about this? So apparently he got tired of that, and he said, I'm going to throw you all the resources that you're going to need, and then it's going to be up to you to make it work or not. And that's kind of how CRT got stood up. And were you going to say something?
No. I was just going to throw in that basically he made many disruptions, which were CRTs at each station, because theoretically the people that work the CRTs and that are picked from the Southeast players, theoretically they should know their division better than people that go across the city, because disruption was a citywide initiative. Y'all would go everywhere.
That's
right?
true. And to this day, I never worked Northeast, right, as a beat cop, right? But I can go into certain parts of Northeast. I know them like the back of my hand because of working there. But it still wouldn't be as good as an officer that was there and worked there all the time, right? So to me, the concept was great. When we heard about it, I was excited because maybe I can continue this. But at Southeast, where I love anyway, that's like my home. I want to go back there. And there was a senior guy in the unit still, and he brought up something that, looking back on it, he was a genius. But he said, "Hey, what are you going to do about the fact that we've been up at headquarters for so many years and kind of lost, some contacts with Southeast, the different divisions, right?" And at the time, I really still didn't understand how DPD works, right? So I was kind of on that. Hey, we go by your resume, right? If you have a good resume at doing this, you're going to be selected for whatever it is you put in for, right? Had no idea. That's not the way it works, okay? So they brought it up, and Chief Cato's response was, well, you have a point. I can't guarantee you days, but I will guarantee you nights. You guys will have a night spot if you want it, right? And honestly, at the time, that wasn't bad because we were already working nights. It was going to be the same exact days off. Me and my partner, Dave Roach, we could go back, work together just like we are now, and be on nights again. I love nights. Mm-hmm. I had no problems with nights, right? So then that's how nights was formed. You guys were formed and were on days, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but the day CRT was basically what Operation Hornet's Nest was before.
Yeah, and I think nights got formed later after the initiative was done.
Right.
Oh, is that right? So that initially there was not a nights?
No, it was just days as the Operation Hornet's Nest, and then when that initiative was done towards the end of the summer, then they started backfilling, like you said, with disruption and getting teams on 2 watches at each station.
So when I got over to the team, I didn't know anybody really, and I can't remember. Did I ride by myself initially?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I remember going there, and
you probably actually had Grant with you for the first couple of days.
Yeah, I was on remedial.
And you were in there, already seeding ideas into him about your plans for this team and what you needed to see him do.
Well, what I noticed first off, just coming there, is that the team was it didn't seem to work as a cohesive unit too well.
Island of Misfit Toys.
It was Island of Misfit Toys, and nobody wanted them. No, I'm just kidding. So I saw a lot of perimeter work for narcotics and transport and narcotics, which is fun. I mean, somebody's got to do it, but it took me a minute to get comfortable around everybody to kind of start up that convoying, and going out and jacking up people and approaching houses because, like I said, again, there's a negative connotation with drug chasing, and that was foreign to a lot of people that I noticed whenever I got there as far as doing that level.
You had to teach them how to eat, right? Because that's what. When I went to nights with Dave, we were with some very young officers.
Yes, you were.
Very young officers that were really good at what they're doing, right? I'm not in any way, talking any kind of negative about them, but we had to teach them basically how to eat, and that we needed numbers every day. Like, this wasn't we couldn't go a day or two without numbers. We had to have it every day.
You had to earn your keep.
Yep.
If not, because you just literally saw a very successful large-scale unit disbanded, and even they were putting up numbers.
Oh, in disruption, we're putting up really good numbers. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we'll get into what we did in CRT. Mm-hmm. It really wasn't comparable, but we were putting up very good numbers in disruption.
Yeah, so I do want to get into with Mark, because I'm kind of going in order of who when they got to the unit. Mark, I remember you and I having conversations because we were going to have an opening in our unit, and I thought about some, man, I'd like this guy to come over to the team. So, if you could remember, what brought you to have an interest in coming to our unit?
So, to back up when we first met, right? Mm-hmm. I was working an extra job, and I came in a little early to work out, right? And you were in the gym with Angie Fox,
yeah.
Right? So I finally was in there a little bit, got to meet you. We had some very similar interests. Your reputation preceded itself, right? I had known about you for years. And, I was like, almost like that. Oh, this is Joe King, right? And I'm actually talking to him.
Kristen's dry heaving over here.
Right. But it was true. I mean, it was absolutely true. And so when you first mentioned it, hey, we may have an opening, my daughter was 2 at the time. I had now been in law enforcement for, 12 or 15 years.
Can you talk real quick on a rabbit hole? Can you tell about your previous law enforcement experience?
Yeah, so I grew up in Missouri, and I became a police officer up there. Small agency. When I first started, I was there for a couple years. Transitioned into a somewhat larger county sheriff's department. When I say larger, I'm talking maybe had 100 people, right, to give you an idea of how big it was. So I know that small town law enforcement life, and ended up coming to the big city. Want the opportunity to do something different, because when you're in a smaller agency, you really don't have many avenues of doing anything but patrol work and some investigative work. Come to the big city to do something fun, get hired on, and so I had that experience beforehand, but I was always the older guy, right? In my academy class, I was the older guy. When I was in disruption, I was kind of the older guy. certainly on night CRT, I was the older guy, but then I meet you.
I'm really old. Yeah.
Right. And we're the same age. And I'm like, okay, this is nice. This is nice. We have this shared experiences. We have a lot in common. You're on days with the weekends off. And I'm like, I got to go to days just to work with Joe King, right? That's really what I want to do.
Can we calm down with the Joe King thing just a little bit, guys?
No.
Well, so when Mark, I remember that a couple weeks before Mark, I think, finally made a decision to come over and Grant, going to Grant and talking to him about it. We hit a house in South Dallas. I mean, we had to lock it down for narcotics, and there was so much different types of drugs in that house. And y'all came out, actually, we had so much shit. Y'all came out, and some of y'all came in early and flexed your hours and came in and helped us on that.
You talking about the Deep Nights crew?
Yeah, the Deep Nights crew came in and helped us, and we got crack, heroin, weed, ecstasy. Hell, there was like big bags of Viagra these guys had, and then all this different stolen property. You remember that, Mark?
Oh, it was yesterday.
And we were out there all day, and it was like just it was on Spence.
Yeah,
it was,
I remember the bad guy's name, too.
Oh, no, really? Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I was just even going to comment earlier when you were talking about disruption and everything. I'm like, how is your memory so sharp? My brain is mush. You're just real sharp on all these details.
It's not quite as, hey, I'm going to go hard on Joe again. It's not quite as photographic as yours is, but I am pretty decent with remembering stuff.
He does. I'm telling you, my memory.
Photographic.
It's photographic. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
My memory is fading, seriously. I was like, there are some things that I've kind of lost, sadly, but I am getting old. So, Mark, whenever you joined the Day CRT, I mean, what were your initial thoughts of how we operated and the type of stuff we were doing?
Well, let me back up to, I don't want to call out people, right? That's not what I'm trying to do, but there was some drama in Day CRT when I got here, right? And so there was some anybody that's worked a small unit understands that you're going to have drama. It's just going to happen, right? You can't, it's just a fact of life. It's usually how you deal with it, to get around it. But I stepped in right in the middle of some big drama, right? So that was my first impression, was what did I get myself into here?
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Ryan thinks it's cool.
Like, I don't know. I wasn't necessarily regretting it, but there was a part of me that was like,
buyer's remorse.
Yeah, I was like, hey, Dave, would you take me back?
Yeah.
But you guys were doing it much differently. I'd never done it that way before. I'm sure you're going to get into the convoy and stuff. In disruption, my experience was we were more reliant on traffic stops, working on your corner guys, right? Doing the old school surveillance in the bushes, pulling up, jumping out,
open air.
Yeah, it was all that good stuff, which is fun, which is great. But you come over and the way you guys were doing it was totally different than anything I had ever done. So the learning curve for me was pretty steep, right? Learning how we operated, what it was you looked at, how we wrote reports was way higher level than what I had ever written before, right? So it took a little bit of a learning curve, but it helped me out.
Well, the report writing is something that I had carried over from, like I said, from that chief under that scrutiny. But after a while, that just become a staple of how we operated. And then I remember when we first got to the unit, there was not a lot of reports like that. That I was seeing.
It's just the facts, ma'am. That kind of thing, rather than good articulation. Yeah, a proper articulation for explaining everything rather than cut and dry facts.
Mark, what did you think of our leadership and team dynamic at that point when you got there? Initial thought, I know you walked into some drama and you handled it well. I remember your first meeting with that quite well. And
that was day one.
That was day one.
Yeah. I wasn't there for that meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this the one where you called out certain people?
Yes, on day one.
Yeah.
That was day one?
Yeah, it was day one. Yeah. It was. He had noticed some things initially, and
with some help, but
with some help, with some side information, but it was interesting.
Wait, so day one on a new team, you're calling out people at a meeting?
Absolutely.
That's ballsy.
That's why we like Mark.
Well,
Yeah.
Let me back up though, real quick, just so it doesn't look like I'm an arrogant ass, right? So, you learn by reputation. Like Joe, that's something Joe told me early on was your reputation means really everything here, right? And so when I was looking at the roster on days, there was some folks that I was like, I don't know about your experience level here, right? Like, I've heard some things. I've never worked around you, but I've heard some things, and I don't know what your experience level is. And I have a lot of experience coming over here. So you're not going to treat me like the new guy. Sorry, it just isn't going to happen. And I made that clear from day one. And I said, with some of that side information, we were in that meeting, and I could clearly see what was going on, and I told it like it was.
So you're saying Joe's stoking fires day one that you got
No,
there?
he doesn't
No,
instigate.
me?
Actually,
Yeah.
day negative 54.
Yeah.
It started
got there,
before
he was
day one.
planning.
Yeah.
I remember Mark, who was a large lumberjack of a man, and he sits back in the chair and he puts his hands behind his head, and his arms are flexing. Is this the way he's sitting? And I remember calmly, because Mark is very calm. And
Could you speak slowly?
yeah, and he says, first off, I need you to lower your voice to this to a person, and I was sitting there grinning because it was entertaining, but I was like, okay, this is there is a new leader here. That's what I looked at it as.
I wasn't there for this day, but I heard about the drama the next day when I came to work, and I got the whispering in the corner.
I think you were in court.
Maybe. I don't know. But this just goes like with Mark saying that you're going to always have drama. It's in some ways you're a family. These are like siblings who squabble.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
they're like dirty cousins, like they're even worse than siblings. I mean,
There's never, Brian, you and SWAT and Mark, you were in narcotics for several years, and Danny and SWAT, and anytime you're working that closely with people, and you had to manage all this. So anytime you're working that closely with people in that small of a unit, relatively speaking, in the department, you're going to have different personalities butt heads. That's just the way it is.
put them in stressful situations.
Yeah.
Too, every day.
Well, it's like a family. I mean, you're working together so much, and you get to know each other so much, and then you have different opinions, and you're in all of these situations, and just like at Christmas dinner where the family's fighting, you're going to start fighting at some point. And I think the hallmark of a good, close unit is being able to work through that and still be successful and still like each other.
I would just make them ride in the same car together for 2 days on a dignitary deal.
I was going to say it probably also comes down to the supervisor of the unit.
Right. We're gonna
Yeah.
get into him. We're definitely gonna get into him and our supervisor. And
I still remember this. We're in a trap house. We got done hitting it. We have dope everywhere. We call Grant in so he can witness the test of the dope. And Joe's upset at someone on the team, and he's ranting. And
Well, Joe,
Dad, Sergeant Grant, is trying to
Joe.
calm him down. It's like, I just calm down. Just calm down. It's fine. It's okay. And Joe pops up and says, oh, of course it's fine to you. You're just going to go back to the station and eat almonds. Like, we have to deal with this. We have to deal with this guy.
That's classic Joe King right there.
yeah, he did. He went back and ate his almonds and apple. He had a very rigid diet. So I want to talk to Candy about whenever, you before we got on mic, you were telling a little story about you. I mean, when I first learned of you, and we were in patrol, and I was doing my thing on Third Watch, and you were out there. But when did you have the opportunity to come to our unit? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I actually, to back that up a little bit, when I started Southeast in 2008, when I left the academy, I guess I just fell into chasing dope as a young rookie officer, trying to figure out what I was going to do, and just really wanted to catch bad guys. And the more cars I pulled over with my old partner, the more we started to see drugs and guns, and we wanted to focus in on that. And so there was an incident very young in my career where myself and my old partner were told to go, if we wanted to chase dope, go behind the station over there off the PGV area.
Hottie in the
Yeah,
street, yeah.
Hottie and all that, El Wayne. And anyways, not knowing too much about anything, this is where you get in trouble because you don't know. We saw a couple knuckleheads leaving the neighborhood, and we pull them over. They have dope. They tell us where they're selling the dope out of, what house. So my partner and I go back there later that night. We knock on the door. The guy opens it. There's dope plain view. Him and I go in, kick in the door, arrest everybody inside. We have no idea where we're at, how we're going to write this up. And so we did. We figured it out. We did. And the next day, our supervisor at that time on third watch, Mike Dominguez, pulls myself and my partner into the office at great arrest, but that's not how we do things. He actually prints out what a knock and talk is, what the general orders is, and he's like, you guys need to kind of read this over, and if you really want to do this type of work, get with Joe King. I had no idea.
Oh, I didn't know he said that.
Yeah, and I had no idea who he was, and I was like, I'm 22 years old. I don't need his help. I got this, But I want to say I think the more I kept getting involved in that at Southeast, the more you kind of were trying to help me out. I know at some point we crossed paths, and I was trying to get to know you, but you kind of kept brushing me off, and I was like, damn, dude, I just want to get some.
My friend list was full.
Yeah. Just trying to get some help.
Didn't make the top 8 on MySpace.
But yeah, then after that 1 year at Southeast, I left. When Operations Hornet Nest started in 2010, Barry Ragsdale was a supervisor over the Northeast station over that program, and he had asked me to be a part of that team, and I went over there, and I left that Hornet's Nest in the summer of 2010 because it was wild. The
hours were wearing you out too.
Yeah, specifically.
Yeah, we were working.
Workaholic.
Yeah, we were working every day, 16+ hour days
Weekends.
Every day, and I just couldn't.
Where are you? I'm
Yeah.
in my pajamas at home on
sleeping,
Saturday. Get up!
you know.
I got something for you to do.
It was great work, and he obviously knew a lot of players and had a lot of information, but it was wearing me out. And then I got back to Southeast in beginning of 2012, and we had hooked up again. And I want to say there were some issues that I was having in patrol on third watch with a specific lieutenant who disbanded our whole third watch group and basically punished us for no reason at all, just because we were chasing dope, and had the opportunity to go to night CRT. And then once I got to night,
did you take Mark's spot?
I think Mark was still there.
No,
you were on days already. Yeah, I probably did take Mark's spot. I know Milligan was there, Nielsen was there,
Man, yeah.
Cooley,
Yeah, Roach was probably still there.
Roach was there. Yeah. There was a good group there, and I think I was only there for a month before you had one of those conversations with me at the station about coming to days.
Well, I remember that, and also I remember, I know you don't remember. You say you don't remember. When you were on the CRT, Sergeant Force's makeshift CRT on third watch.
That's right.
You called me and left me a voicemail.
I did.
You don't remember.
You say that I left you this voicemail.
Right. Well,
do you still have it?
I uncovered this lost audio of this. So
You went deep for this.
I went deep for this. It was
You
going
really
back to the old
from an informant.
From an informant through the old Razor phone. So
I just want to make sure this is probably my brother's voice.
No, I don't think so.
Nah, it's your voice.
Hang on, let's take a listen.
Hey, this is Officer Candelaria on Third Watch CRT, Sergeant Force's Burglary Task Force.
Hey, bro, I'm here too.
Shh, bro, I got this. Let me talk. Yeah, I was just wanting to pass off some information on a drug house we found in the Grove.
It's on Blueberry.
Yeah, it's on Blueberry, and we drove by, and it's a brown house with yellow trim. The yard has no grass, bro. It's almost as there's so much foot traffic, bro. It's killed the grass.
It's on Blueberry.
Shh, bro, I already said Blueberry. Yeah, so anyway, this house is on Blueberry, and not only is the lack of grass only thing interesting, we saw a crack addict raking the dirt out in front of the house.
That's the MO, bro.
That's the modus operandi of the drug dealer, is to have crack addicts do work for them in exchange for drugs. I've noticed this numerous of times from other drug houses I personally busted, because that's how we do it. We roll up on these drug houses and bust them bitches, and then we make the crack addict doing all the yard work watch us do it.
Preach, brother.
So yeah, I have a good feeling about Blueberry. Judging by the yard and that addict, I 100% say it's crack sales. probably packaged in blue baggies to match the street name. You know what I mean? Hey, bro, I have one request if y'all look at it.
We'll come out helping in perimeter.
Shut up, man. I'm talking. I'm getting to that. Yeah, like I said, just one request. Let us be there when you bust that effing door down. We want to see that glorious white stuff. So like I said, this is Brian Candelaria. I'm sure you heard of my work, but I just wanted you to hear from the big dog himself.
Don't forget to say my name.
Candelaria. That's my name. Get it? Mandel area. All right, over and out. How was that, bro?
Oh, it was good, but you mention me next time.
But next time, don't talk over me.
Sorry. Well, there you have it.
No, that was it.
I forgot about
Yeah.
Candelaria.
Yeah,
That was accurate. That was pretty accurate.
very accurate. Yeah, I brought that up in yours and Gabe's episode, and I could not find the audio, and I was able to dig through old Android
Yeah.
razors and get it. Thank you for that.
I don't remember that voicemail.
You don't?
No.
Well, now the listener has it.
We were on CRT and he kept playing it over.
Yeah.
We'd be out at lunch. He's like, let's listen to it again.
I'm pretty sure that made its way around the station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I heard that, I said, "Is that real? Is that seriously real? Did he say that?"
Yeah. Oh, the
It was
Mandalorian.
real. It was real.
Poor Brian.
That's all good.
Hey, it's all out of love.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
here
all
because
good.
we love him. We touched on this guy's name. I want to shift gears, and I want to get into the great Sergeant Robert Grant. So, I worked for Ron and Rob Grant on Third Watch at various points, and I knew them from Deep Nights when I heard on. Probably the most genuine and sweet individuals I've ever been around, and especially in the police world. I mean, they were such good guys. Ron was more, they're identical twins, and I could tell them apart. Ron had his hair, hair never out of place.
He looked like the Terminator in Terminator 2.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect uniform. Rob looked like he was,
Disheveled.
battling a bender, and and his hair was a little down on his forehead more than it was like that movie Little Nicky with Adam Sandler, the kind of disheveled look.
There may have been some pictures like that going around.
There may have been, but in all seriousness, though, he was the perfect supervisor for those teams and that type of work. And I want to go in more about the command staff at Southeast at the time. So we had Chief Elsie, who was amazing and supportive of what we did. Actually relied on us for all these complaints she was getting from community constituents. And then we had Major Coleman, Mike Coleman, and that was yet another layer of powerful support. And then Lieutenant Kevin Campbell was our lieutenant. Yeah. And then we had Rob Grant. And I think Rob's reputation, the Grant brothers' reputation, kind of put everybody at ease in the command staff of what we were doing was on the up and up, and we could be trusted.
Yeah, can I jump in here real quick?
Sure.
Shout out to Tammy Elsie too, right? She did it right, in my opinion. Should have been the model for this. Was she had Kent mentioned earlier about the deployment on days. That was another great group of guys, right? And like Kent said, they really focused on burglaries, and they were almost our equal in the dope chasing world, right? For as much good arrest that they made and what they did. And Elsie, as a commander, could have stopped us and said, like other divisions did, where, hey, no, you guys need to do warrant stuff or anything but dope because we're scared of dope. It's going to ruin my career. But she didn't. She let us go. And we those two units kind of meshed with each other. And because of that, I think the results were tremendous, right? I mean, the reduction in crime at Southeast, and some of the most violent neighborhoods are in the southeast side of our city. And it, she did a great job at that. And then I knew Rob by reputation again, right? Rob and Ron. Couldn't have told them apart at the time. But you start working for him a little bit, and you, like you said, Joe, you really start seeing the differences in personality and everything. And Rob was, you're right, perfect for this. As a supervisor myself, you have to let your people work.
Yep.
right? You can't have your thumb on them all the time, and you have to let them work. And Rob was perfect at that, right? And it sometimes the other side of that is he gets a little lax with some discipline issues we had, right? But I would have taken that 100 times over with the fact that he let us work day in and day out.
Yeah, so we got 3 supervisors sitting here in Kent and Brian and Mark. Is there anything from his leadership style that kind of helped y'all, like, and how it's helping y'all being leaders yourself?
For me, it's I try to do exactly what he did, where I let my people work, and then I try to filter, the BS that's coming downhill. I try to stop it in its tracks and keep that off of them and give them the tools and whatever it is they need to work. And I think Rob really did a good job of that. And I think the other thing is I try to, anyway, be as calm as I can. That was another thing about him. He was so
always
even-keeled and calm, and that helped diffuse a lot of situations, which you're talking about with these small units, like bickering and on each other. But for me, if I was looking at a supervisor to emulate, as a supervisor myself, it was Rob Grant.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say the same. I think part of it is, and Mark and I promoted it pretty much at the same time, and we see supervisors that we promoted with that are constantly on their troops, and I'm on Sergeant Grant's kind of motto, which is back off, let the troops work. That's what they were hired to do, and just kind of oversee everything and make sure that you guys give them the tools that we need and all that stuff. But yeah, that was great about him. He let us do our work, never got into it with us. And then like Mark said, he was always calm.
He had to put up with me and my, I really
look at the amount of personalities he put up with.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I was just going to say that team was, if you look at it, was pretty diverse.
We had some strong personalities.
Yeah. And I think that there was a lot to manage there. It's like I look at myself, Joe, you, and even Justin Hellengard, and then you throw in some more all-ball characters that are strong in personality, maybe not with a leadership sense, but strong enough in personality that it was interesting.
Yeah, he had to be a lion tamer on a lot of occasions, and I will say this, and no offense to anybody that I've worked for or with, before or since, that he is the best supervisor I ever worked for, and it really annoyed me whenever, and I see this from other people too, that are some people, not everybody, but some people will take advantage of people's kindness, and that really bothered me, because I kind of saw a level of that, and that really pissed me off, because Rob is such a good human being. Who gives a shit about great cop? No, he's a good human being first, and everything else kind of fell in place after that. But it really bothered me when I saw people taking advantage of his kindness and his good nature of the way he led. So,
you still talk to him?
No, he ghosted me. Go ahead, Danny.
Blocked you probably.
No, so he doesn't really talk. He just writes one-word responses
or letters.
Yeah.
Abbreviations of things, yeah.
Right. Well, the thing is, I'll send like some the old school teammates, and he's part of it. I'd send like some off the wall meme, and then I'll say Grant. I'll say Grant at 2 a.m, and he'll respond indeed or something like
or
that.
Ha,
yeah, or thumbs up the comment. That's about the most you're gonna get out of him. Him and Ron walked out of here the same day at Southeast, and it was a sad day for DPD.
I felt like a piece of DPD walked off with him for sure.
Yeah, no, I would always cherish where, even though I was a huge pain in his ass, I'm sure, but I always cherish that time working with him or for him.
You think there's a chance we could get them to come back and
we've tried
an episode?
We've tried.
We've tried to have them down here, but.
Yeah, they're not.
I think we would have to convince Ron, and then Ron would convince Rob.
Yeah. Rob is probably worried that I'm gonna take some pic of him too close to the mic and then Photoshop something else in there.
Banana.
Yeah. Rob could not eat a banana in front of us safely.
None of us could.
Nobody could.
Still.
Right.
That's why I quit eating bananas.
Exactly.
Southeast.
Yeah,
That's why anytime somebody's got a phone up,
I
I'm
write
just
that
like,
one down. That's why I quit
What are you
eating
doing?
bananas at Southeast.
you got to
I'll
eat
write that
banana
as
with a
line
fork
there.
and knife.
It's the title of the episode.
So now that we finished polishing off Grant, I want to talk about everybody's favorite type of work that we did on that team. Like, you know, I've got some notes here, but I want to get what y'all think about this.
About the hot roll?
Yeah, the hot roll.
That's what I called it. What did you call it? Convoying?
Yeah, either work.
Yeah, so just breaking it down for people, this was pretty much every day we did it this way. We would come into the station, we'd mine some intel. I'd look over Mark's on the computer on the fake Facebook account we'd have where we were getting these thugs to friend us, and we would actually look through pictures. These fools would take pictures of themselves in the trap house or right out front, and we would actually go through these pictures and go, wait, I think I know what intersection that is. And then we would just roll out there. So we either do that or we'd pick up warrants, and then we would just hit the streets, and we would do it in a caravan. So, you know, one of us would be leading. Usually it's Joe. Sometimes it's Mark or me. We'd be leading the caravan, driving around, and we would just see target indicators, and we would just jump out. And normally we're targeting houses. Sometimes some of the open air stuff, like Mark said, the corner hits, but a lot of it was we were looking for the bigger houses and the bigger players, these guys running these traps. And, you know, you have a team of anywhere between 6 and 8 people, and all of a sudden you jump out and you got them shocked. And they, you know, they're trying to figure out what to do, and you got 6 officers running up to the house, and then at that point it's establishing some kind of probable cause based on what you see and what you hear and all the other indicators. And then that leads you into if you're grabbing people or if you're bursting into that structure and taking it down. But every day when I drove to Southeast on CF on freeway and I saw the Jim Miller exit, I got excited. Every day I got excited to come to work.
I would have paid to come to work back in those days.
Yeah. I want to kind of go a little further on the hot roll, the convoy. So one thing I like to do, and I was doing this even the old police report system, and now it's at the new VisiNet system, is you could go in and you can search specifically for drug house calls, open air drug house, open air cells, and also drug house calls in your division. And when you start seeing the same, like, because the citizens that are calling, they're the ones that live amongst it. They know it better than we do. Mm-hmm. And you start getting this intel. If you see one location has like 4 or 5 calls in a month, and they're very specific with the intel, you can get a lot from that. And you can get a lot in how you're going to approach that. So I would hear, you know, there's always going to be haters, and there's, you know, people talking shit, saying, oh, they stumbled into another dope house, or no, this is another Southeast CRT deal. Well, what they didn't realize is that we would go by the same location 20 times a week, and nothing would be out. Doors would be closed, nobody in the driveway, you know, it's quiet. But the 21st time you drive up, doors wide open, guy sitting on the front steps on his phone, smoking a blunt, or you catch a car in the driveway, a guy's walking from the backyard to the car, and it was really luck.
Game on.
Yeah. And you're really jumping out and putting yourself in a position
to get more info.
Right, to get more info.
To develop it more.
And you kind of react on what they did. And that's what we did. And it wasn't always. We would always strike out. I mean, we would go by a place, and we had a list of locations.
Even multiple times in a day.
Yep.
Same house over and over again.
Or how many houses do we get in and we couldn't put it on a person because they're in
Found
this
property.
room and everything's over here. Found property, and then we just keep rolling.
Yeah, because we weren't going to push a bad position.
Oh, no. And I remember, Mark, something you said that struck me early on is you said, man, I made a lot of entries, and you were in SWAT in Missouri that you said, this is by far the most.
I said it for years, too, on SWAT. I made more entry with a soft vest and a pistol than I had warrants. And I remember guys in SWAT saying they were nervous the night before their very first warrant, and I was like, no.
Come to Southeast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it really was just knowing the location, looking for a certain type of activity, and going by and getting lucky. I remember one apartment on Park Row, and I don't know if you remember this. We're driving. I'm in the front car, and we're driving up, and it's a row of two little shitty like an upstairs and downstairs, and maybe the entire unit had 20 rooms, 10 on the bottom, 10 on top, and I see a bicycle leaning against the wall in the front door. Right, you remember that, Mark?
Oh yeah. Let me jump in here. Real quick,
Okay.
Right? So I was still pretty new at the time, and I was riding with you, kind of learning.
Yeah.
You know, and we roll by the first time, right? To me, I'm not seeing anything, right? But I'm still learning on what I'm looking for here. You hit the block, and you come back by.
I was flying. Too.
Yeah, and you did, and you come back by, and we immediately jump out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't tell you why we were even getting out of the car, right? I had no idea. But you had seen the bike, right? This is what you tell me later.
Yeah.
You'd seen the bike. You know, users typically ride a bike, right? And that wasn't there before when we rolled by before, so that was your indicator.
Ask Candelaria.
Yeah.
It's true. I left you a voicemail on that bike.
Yeah.
So, and as happens, when you put yourself, that's another thing I learned was, right, if you put yourself in areas that, you know, you have the legal authority to be in, good things are going to happen, right? And when we approached that, and he had the bike out front, the buyer just happened to be coming out, right? And so anyway, we make a huge arrest, and afterwards, my head is just spinning, and I'm thinking, I don't even know like how any of this occurred. And then you start explaining it to me, and I'm like, it starts clicking, and I'm like, okay, this is where my game has to get better. I have to get better at this because I thought I was pretty good to begin with, but then I had no idea that there's levels to this game. And you guys were at such a higher level than where I was. I had to learn how to get into that. And that's what I really started learning from day one.
It's like an experiment in sociology. You start to realize different things that certain groups of people do, and you see it way faster than you actually understand it. You know, and you react to the same situations, and people that are doing something that they shouldn't be doing react the same way repeatedly. So once you start to pick up on that stuff, and you know the adult on a BMX bike pretty much screams probation violation or parole, right?
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, once you see those bikes and things like that, you start to click all that stuff together. It really starts to turn it for you.
Well, on that particular house, I see the bike and I just punch it. I haul ass and I take the first right. It was on Atlanta, I believe, and then I take the next right on MOK, and I come around, and the cars behind me are just hauling ass. They don't know what I saw. They're just, oh shit.
And that's usual for people in the back of the convoy. Like
we got something.
Like
yeah.
And then you just see the guys in the front car just bailing out, and you're bailing out with them. Like, all right, we're about to figure out what this is all about.
Right, and it kind of unfolds. But there's also times in that particular case, it really worked out, and you kind of visualize. And Danny, you talked about this about visualizing success, visualizing. The reason I was trying to hurry up and get around the block because I'm thinking in my head, this is how long, if that is a buyer that belongs to that bike, it is literally this amount of seconds that I need to make the block and get back to where they're coming out and time it perfectly. Because 10 seconds either way,
yep.
I mean, riding away
we used to
on
talk
that bike.
about that all the time.
Yeah.
How many times we talk about us being there that specific day, literally 10 seconds either way. And this happens or doesn't happen.
And that's where that crazy luck comes in. I mean, that'd be the difference of seizing $80,000 off the kitchen counter or not even getting in at all. It was crazy how that always worked out.
I think that's where that trust comes in too, though, because the assumption is that whoever's in the front of the convoy knows what they're doing. Because if you guys are all following them, and you guys could stop it at some point, but that could go bad real quick.
And that was kind of the benefit of being the lead on the convoy is everybody's following you at that point. Generally, at least. You're the one that's looking ahead. You're the one that's looking at everybody's body language reaction. And so when Joe taught me how to take the lead, I mean, that's everybody behind you just trusted you. You got out, everybody else got out.
Yeah, and there's also something with being a team player and knowing where to fill in holes.
Yep.
Like I still always think about Birmingham. We were rolling down Birmingham, and the front door happened to just had come open, and a guy walks out. with, I think, 50 pounds in his arms.
In a garment bag.
And puts it in the trunk of the car, and I am bailing out, and I'm running for the front door. I don't care about the guy.
Joe says, close my door.
Yeah. I want to get into the house, right? So I am running for the house, but everyone else knows we also need to grab the guy. So Mark, did you grab him, I think? Mm-hmm. So Mark grabs the guy with the 50 pounds.
We were in a fight in the front yard.
Yeah. I go running in. Helen Guard follows me, knowing I'm going in the house by myself. So everyone's filling in holes. I end up tripping over another 50 pounds in the dark.
Yeah,
and then getting $100,000 off the kitchen counter.
Yeah.
But it's people seeing things and leading, and then everyone else filling in the holes and knowing, here's where my role is at this moment in these seconds to help the team.
And it's reacting. And it happens so fast. You could be sitting there cold, and all of a sudden somebody sticks their head out from behind a house, or a car pulls up. And then game's on, and then you got to really act on what you're seeing, and you, if you have a lag, you may not be as successful.
My heart rate's a little elevated. I'm getting a little excited talking about this.
Yeah, it's bringing back a lot of memories.
So from my perspective, when I got here, today's CRT, you guys did it much differently, right? We were always together. We always convoyed
Strength
together.
in numbers.
Totally foreign to me. Okay, me and my partner, we would separate, and we'd be in a general vicinity, right? We would pick an area to be to operate in, but we were never together. We were always getting our own thing. We would go to jail on our own, and then we would support each other if we called for help, that kind of thing. But with this, it was a great concept because, like Joe said, our cover was there always. We never, ever had to call for extra cover, right? Once in a while when we got on the ground, we'd call for air support, but we'd say on the radio, we don't need any additional personnel. We have everybody here, right? But that also caused some problems, right? We had, I was used to coming from and where you had individual activity. So everybody was held to a certain amount, a certain account, right? If you got to do this much. But with this group, we had some folks that would slack, right? And would do it intentionally, right? And that would get on my nerves a little, but looking back, I still think that is by far the way to go. Like that's the way you should do it. And then when I was talking about how I was learning, right? So for the listeners that maybe don't know, when we talk about a trap house is it's a house that is, it's typically a rental house of some kind. And the sole purpose of that house is to sell drugs. That's it. That's all they do. They will make fortifications of that house. They will put, burglar bars up on the front, windows on the doors. How many shark cages do we see, right? And that was terminology that we called where they would actually build an interior cage out of metal, right? And that would allow a buyer to come in, but they couldn't have access to the rest of the house, right? And it was fortification for us to prevent us coming in, right? And then you do your deal through a little cutout in the cage. Well, the other thing they would have is cameras, right? We'd see cameras all the time, good eyes outside, well-worn paths. I didn't know any of this, right? None, until I start rolling with you guys. And I start learning this is what Joe and this is what Danny and some of these guys are looking for when we're out and we're rolling around. To me, I'm just like rolling around looking at the countryside, right? I had no idea what it was you guys were looking at. And that's not probable cause that you can do anything. That's just giving you an indicator that drugs are likely sold here.
It's a building blocks.
Absolutely. And even when I got to narcotics, do a little freelance work in narcotics, I'd be rolling around South Dallas, and I'd say, hey, this place has got to be up and selling again, right? And, of course, we do some techniques to see if they were selling, and sure enough, they were selling again. And some of the guys I work with were like, how did you know that? And I said, it's from this experience here. And you start learning to pay attention to those indicators, start learning your case law, and we'll get into that in a minute, and why it allows you to be where you're at. And then, like Joe said, I can't tell you countless times we would be convoyed together, and we'd roll by a spot, and we'd go roll by a couple other spots, and we'd come back to that same spot, and they had no activity before, and then suddenly we got the door open. One incident I remember very well. We're on Carpenter. I hadn't been here very long, and you rolled up, and I honestly don't remember what it was you saw, but we got out. And we're approaching the door, and as we get up close, I can hear a voice inside, he's got the door kind of cocked open, right? And a shark cage on this side, or burglar bars on this side. And he's got the door kind of open, and he's saying, "Come on, man, come on, we got to go." And I'm thinking, he's seen us, right? Well, he had no idea we were standing there. And he opens the door a little further, and now we can clearly see into the house as his partner is walking up front, and he moved the curtain aside, right? And in his hand, he had, what was that, probably 150 grams of crack in his hand, his hand, right? And I was just amazed at the fact that we were able to see this from outside, and they were making no effort to conceal it until, of course, they saw us, and then the big eyeballs and yeah, and then kicking the front door in, and we're running after him, right? It was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot.
Yeah, that really goes back to putting yourself in position to succeed. Like going by that door, and there's some people going, it's just open.
You mean not in the squad car?
Yeah, not in the squad car. Yeah.
Good point.
Right. Yeah, you got to get out of the squad car. And going up there, and I remember that because I remember you're like, damn, but other people would hear that story and go, there's no way that happened that way. That didn't happen that way.
Until they came out with us.
Yeah. But you'd even go to trial or hearings on this, and the judge almost wouldn't believe you, like, I don't believe they really saw that.
No, people are that dumb. And it literally, it's, we are trained. And I believe when you're getting out on locations over and over and over, and I've talked about before about your mind gets so sharp and it gets so hyper-focused, and every cop's in a hyper-vigilant state, but you basically harness that and focus it in on what you're there for and your mission, and you really can use it to your advantage. And when you go up to and approach people, some of the people we're dealing with are not trained assassins. Let's be honest. A lot of the guys, they're younger guys. They're hanging out, playing. It's funny. It always cracks me up whenever they have these trap houses and they'd be heavily fortified. They got cameras up. They got every security measure they could think of, but they'd have the damn door open. They're sitting there playing PlayStation and getting high.
Countless times.
So you're basically using your sharpened skills that are perishable, by the way, if you're not using them. I would really be useless out there right now. It'd be like an NFL player, like somebody from high school trying to play in the NFL right now.
Processing overload for us right now. We're
right.
just not experienced with it anymore.
It is a thing. The shit ain't like picking up riding a bicycle. You have to get your mind in shape and your
But I think focus. You'd surprise yourself if you went back to patrol today. How many young officers don't? You'd be light years ahead of it. When I went back after promotion, convoying with my troops to show them what you taught me, and we pull up into a motel and deer in the headlights come up and these couple guys and talk to them, and they've got guns, heroin, meth, the whole shebang, and troops are like, I couldn't believe we could do this.
Yeah, I'm wellness guy now.
Yeah.
It is their modus operandi.
That is their modus operandi. So Brian, I want to ask you, like, what was Blueberry? So what was your favorite thing to do on that team?
Hands down convoying, and then hoping that we were going to kick in a door that day to a house. I guess just to echo off what everybody's saying. But it does take a skill, to be able to be lead and to see things unfold or prepare for them to happen. Like you said, 10 seconds to go around the block to anticipate all that. Like, that's a learned technique, and but once you get it, and it's awesome. And every day I wanted to kick in a door.
Yeah, you have to learn to put the blinders on at some point.
Yeah.
I have memories of leaving jail at 4 o'clock and Helen Guard going, let's just look at this real quick for tomorrow.
Gotta stumble into something.
And then the next thing you know, I'm booting the door and there's 12 dudes in the back and guns and dope. And yeah,
it goes to a level of being intuitive too. And I remember you talking about that, Brian, when we were riding together. So Brian and I's relationship, we joke all the time. And Mark and I've had a relationship with everybody on the team. Mark and our relationship, we would go work out every day at Southeast Gym after work, right? We'd sneak in a little early, and start working out.
Every day.
Every day. And that was our debrief. We would talk about the day's events, what we liked, what we didn't like, who annoyed us. Yeah.
And look at your position now as a wellness unit, right? What were we doing? It was, this group that is sitting here, we spent so much time together and we're trauma bonded, right? Because we saw so much trauma together, right? And we were in so many close calls that when we were working out, that's what it was. It was just like, man, yeah, we're decompressing with each other.
Yeah, it was venting and dumping and yeah. No, I cherish that so much. And Mark and I did some hellacious workouts, and I don't think I've ever been in that good a shape.
Me either.
It was great. And then my other part of the day was when I left, I'd either call Brian and Danny on the way home when I'm driving in traffic, and I would talk to them about the day. Remember that?
Yeah.
We would talk and kind of talk about how we could have done things better, how we did things bad, how other people did things bad.
You still do that with the podcast.
I still do that with the podcast. I call up Kent on the way home and I go, "What'd you think of that? Would you think? what did you think? How do you think that went?" Yeah, that was fun.
We had strict rules at my house. Emily made me turn the ringer on silent and not pick up the phone if Joe texted.
Yeah. Emily, I do want you to kind of talk about the house rules for Danny.
I don't know.
You don't know. So you were kind of picking up on you were who he came home to. You would have to, he'd come home and would he talk about how the day went and how the unit was going?
Sometimes he would.
Well, I got to know you pretty well, and we would hang out off duty with the families, and I was always curious. I've never had anybody's spouse that from the old team that would come on and kind of vent about what they had, like the person we sent home with all the up and down day and all the trauma we exposed them to.
I saw a lot of videos and crazy stuff.
Photos and videos?
Yeah, photos and videos.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes he didn't share bad stuff, but he did share.
Was it hard for him to come home and like turn off the day? Because they really love their job at the time and they love being part of the work. And I know that Joe's talked about having a hard time turning it off and being too into the work. So like when Danny came home, did he have a hard time shutting it off and kind of refocusing on you guys?
He was pretty good at it. He can compartmentalize.
Yeah. And I had gotten on the team in January 2010 and we had just gotten married the month before. So we were newlyweds. So this is kind of all she knew for the most part with my job was doing this. But she's man, getting sidetracked from CRT, but I have to say, like, if you had to have a spouse who was the role model for being supportive and keeping home life going, it's always been Emily. Can I tell a story about the shooting?
Sometimes your fault. It's going to be bad.
Can I tell a story about the shooting?
Please.
Okay.
Okay, so Mark and I are in the shooting at Southeast in 2012, and we're separated. And we're in our cars, and we're told, call your lawyers, and then call your wives, make sure that they're okay and they know that you're fine. And I said, I don't need to call my wife, she's good. And the guys are saying, no, you need to do this because if she sees something on the news, she could be worried, and you need to let her know you're okay. And I said, no, she's not going to hear the news. She's not going to care. I'm telling you, it's fine. Well, we're there eventually long enough that we have to go down to headquarters, and this is now at the end of our shift. We still haven't even written statements. And so I know this is going to be a long night. Like normally we're off at 4 or 5. We're probably getting home at 10 or 11. So I finally call her, and I say, hey, just let you know, everything's fine. Everyone on the team's fine, but we were involved in a shooting, and I'm going to be getting home late because we still have to go to headquarters and need to write statements. And she goes, well, like how late? And I said, well, maybe about 10 or 11. And she says, well, I made dinner. I said, yeah, I'll just have to eat when I come home. She said, well, it'll be cold then. I said, yeah, I'll heat it up. She goes, well, I'm not waiting up for you. I'm going to go to bed if you're going to be that late. I said, that's fine. She's like, okay, well, then I'll see you in the morning.
she is shaking her head. Now here's her chance for a rebuttal.
He just downplays everything with this job, so I guess I just didn't think it was such a big deal.
It's not a big deal. I was in good company.
Well, I have to say that I had to take off that day because I was with a repairman, and it still pains me to this day of y'all getting into that with that ag robbery suspect of those apartments, and and not being able to be there to be with you guys, it still bothers me.
Well, I remember talking to you,
Yeah.
after shortly afterwards, and I think honestly, I was almost more emotional talking to you than I was my own wife, right? Because I was the same way. Like I'm not saying you're immature by any means, but I certainly was back in those days, right? And I was the same way with my wife. I was just like, look, I was in this, and this is it. I didn't really care like what the effect was on her, and any of that. Like you said, I was in good company, right? I was being taken care of. So as far as she knows, I'm good. I'm safe. I'll be home when I'm home, right? That's the way I looked at it. But talking to you and just hearing the genuine concern in your voice because you weren't there, right? That was for me probably harder than talking to my own family.
To just reinforce Emily's point, though, Danny does have a calm about him usually that will downplay some of the biggest events you've ever been a part of. So for him to be like, hey, I'm not going to be home, like that's not going to set off any red flags for her. She's just going to be like, okay. I'm sure the 4 o'clock phone calls were pretty regular of, hey, we're going to be home late.
Damn, food's cold.
Do you know what I cooked? By the way, she's an amazing cook. So I don't know how Danny missed dinner too often, but
right. One thing that I really appreciated and loved the most was the family aspect of that team, and it kind of started with Grant. Grant was the father, and I think I was the asshole oldest cousin, but just like any family, like we talked about, you get on people's nerves and you butt heads and you have a difference of opinion. But I want y'all to kind of talk about kind of like that, what you felt our little family was like at that time.
Well, it was tough because you had some very strong personalities in that group, very strong. And we got along for the most part. I don't want to make it sound like we didn't get along, but we did really get along for the most part.
Yeah.
I still look at a lot of you guys as brothers, right? All this time later, because we did so much. There were some on the team that maybe it was just me in a personality clash. I don't know what it was, but I really just could never gain any mutual footing with them. Like there was never any time that we really got along, but they were still a part of the team.
Yeah, even that going in that, and I'm in the same boat with you on how I looked at that. Is one thing that I think that I did not do a good job of is being patient with people, and I had years of experience of doing this type of work with right off little T, and I was very stubborn and really set in my ways, and I had a really hard time with what I believed was people not working up to a certain level. And it didn't make, but I really had a hard time not realizing, well, they don't have as much experience of doing this as you,
But for me, to take that a little further, the huge frustration for me was, and it's a DPD thing, I knew, as well as all of you did, other people that weren't on the team that were doing really good work, right? And I really wanted them to come over and join us really bad. Like to me, you just remove these people and then plug these people in, and we are like a rock star, like an all-star team, right? And that's where the frustration really would come in.
We needed the Brian Candelaria on the team.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was 25 when I joined the team, so I was young. But yeah, I got along with everybody though. I really didn't make too many enemies with people, but yeah, I felt like we all worked well together. And I think you fast forward 18 years later and realize, like, especially now as a supervisor, everybody's got different personalities, strengths, weaknesses, and I always kind of use this example with my guys, no matter where I'm at, is that there's only one NFL quarterback for one team. Right, so not everybody can be the Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. Not everybody can be the Micah Parsons, right? But everybody's here, and everybody has a role.
Absolutely. and that is one thing that I struggled with, and I think I was hard on people because I had a hard time, being frustrated that why does this damn person always run to the back door, or why do they, but you need that. You need somebody to cover the back. You need somebody to be the property room person. I had a hard time, and I know that I was difficult to work with. But
even from a different perspective, like mine, and we've talked about this on previous podcasts, me being so competitive that I wanted to take charge. I wanted to take the lead away from you. I wanted to be the guy up front, the first one through the door and all this stuff. So, I mean, that could have created problems, with you and I at some points, or me being too
assertive
or joking around too much. I don't remember.
There's a fine line, right? It's like, at what point do you want to show initiative and be that guy, or do you cross too far and then now you piss someone off?
Right.
But again, I'm going to apologize for being difficult to work with, because I know I was in a lot of situations, and I might have been hard on people in certain situations.
Well, I forgive you.
Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, but looking back, I felt, and I know every substation had a CRT, I felt we were the very best. And I wanted, and I believed our reputation when other people, even though they may want to talk shit about us, they may have, like, deep down, they knew it. And I wanted to live up to that.
Well, I think that when you talk about the other CRT groups, right, the one that stands out would be the group at Southwest.
Wagner's,
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great guys.
Yes.
Phenomenal police officers. But they did things very differently from us, right? They were intel driven. They had connections with, some narcotics groups, DEA, that kind of thing. So they were very intel driven. And they did it very differently than us. And that caused some conflicts between us as well. But for the most part, we were hands down the best group.
Well, I know everybody's probably going to listen to this and punch the steering wheel, but that's, everybody's got an opinion, and
it is what it is.
Anybody else?
It was just an incredibly dynamic group, and I was someone who understood more about coming from a past life and a different career, that not everyone's a rock star and everyone has a job. I was more understanding of that, so I felt like it was on some of us every day when we came in to also do more in order to meet those expectations like Joe's talking about, because I know that kind of stuff frustrated him. But to go along with Kristen's earlier comment about being a family, if you've never worked on a small team before, the thing you can take away from it is it doesn't stop when you leave.
Yeah.
So we are tied into those phones. When we go home after work, we're still texting each other. We're on the same wavelength. We're talking about the same stuff. We're planning what we're going to do the next day. Jokes revolve around what we just got done doing. It really is a family. You are tied in a way that it's hard to explain, that it doesn't turn off. It's a part of your life.
No, I agree. I'm sitting here with, brothers from that, and I always will look at all of y'all as that. And even the people that I wasn't as close with on the unit, they had a role, And I know that, like I said, again, I know I was hard on certain people. And one thing that we did, nobody was off limits when it comes to jokes and practical jokes on each other.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll tell you, I'll share one good one of many, right, that you got me. This was a good one, right? So you and I'm sure you probably remember this. We go out to eat, and for some reason it was just you and me. I don't know why. I don't know where everybody else was, but it was just us, right? And so we're eating, and we're in this restaurant, and we were sitting across from each other, right? We weren't doing anything weird and holding hands next. We were sitting across from each other like we're supposed to. And you went on and on about this girl that just walked in, right? And she was so good looking, and seriously, Mark, she looks like a model. You're going to have to take a look. And I said,
Good Eats.
Yeah, that's right. And I said, okay, well, where is she sitting? And he's like, well, she's at your 6 o'clock. And I said, that's directly behind me. How am I going to turn around? And he says, okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'll wait till she's distracted, and then I'll tell you. You just kind of nonchalantly turn around like you're grabbing some. And said, okay, cool. So he gives me the cue, like, hey, go ahead. So I turn around, right, and I know you can't see me, but I literally had to turn all the way around in my seat. I'm a big guy, so it takes a minute.
Pretty obvious.
Right? It's very obvious what I'm doing. And I look, and she's looking me dead in the eyes. And I couldn't say anything. My face turned beet red. I couldn't say anything. I just gave her the old, hey, like
pleasant grin.
Hey, what's going on, right?
Failed smile.
Yeah, and I turned back around, and I mean, I could literally feel the beads of sweat coming down my face. But that's the type of stuff we did to each other all the time.
Yeah, I remember that, and it couldn't have been more obvious. It would have. If you would, it only would have made it more obvious if you'd have turned and pointed at her.
Right.
You rode with Joe, so you were a victim. Of
many
him
many times.
Just pulling up to girls on the sidewalk.
That was another
and rolling
one.
Your
That was
down.
his classic. Was
we roll the window down.
We would just roll the window down, not say anything. He would just roll the window
Being
down.
in the driver's seat, you had a lot of control of all the windows.
And of course, they would stop and they'd look at you, and you'd look at them, and you'd say, "I don't know.
It's an accident."
Yeah.
Well, I did that with Grant a lot too. Whenever we were doing the warrant roundup, and whatever, a handful of times the partner was off that day or whatever, Grant would jump in with me, and I always like to pull up to, like the homeless person of the day at the intersection, and Grant's literally just on the other side of Grant's window. He'd make a comment, "Oh, look at it," and I'd start rolling down the window. Like, so they would come over thinking he wanted to talk to him. Never got old. One time I got Brian, and I don't know if you remember this. So we're at Jim Miller and CF Hahn. We're heading back to the station, and we pull up at the light, and CF Hahn's like directly in front of us. So we're about to go back to Southeast, and a lady pulls up next to us, and you're driving, and you look over and you smile. She smiles at you, and you look back straight ahead. I reach over and I honk the horn.
Oh yeah.
And you quickly looked over back at her. She was staring at you, and you just had that failed smile look.
I wanted to just hit the gas,
run the red light.
Yeah.
Run the red light. The look on your face, though, you just had that big grin. You just go stupid.
I remember we were at the property room one time, and there's a guy that worked down there, great guy, but when he started talking to you, you couldn't get away from him, right? He's just one of those that you just could not get away from.
Yeah.
So we were down there, and I'll never forget this. You start a conversation with him, and I'm thinking, what, we're going to be here for an hour because Joe just started a conversation with him. So Joe waits until he gets good and going, right? He's getting lathered up, and he's starting to talk our ear off. And Joe immediately picks his phone up, and he answers it, and he goes, yes, Mr. President, and he walks off.
Yeah.
Right? And he leaves us.
I left you standing there to...
Just sitting there talking to this guy, and we could not get away from him.
Yeah.
It was stuff like that constantly.
Well, it wasn't necessarily practical jokes, but there were enough. But it was like, poor Grant, he looked like he's still like he's in his, he's 80 something now, right? And I hope he has conquered his coke problem, but God, no, I'm just kidding. So these two twins, they're always fit, they're always in shape. I always accuse him of dyeing his hair black because it still is dark black. And remember that? I'd always accuse him. He'd lift. No, I don't.
No,
he'd lift up his hair, and I would say that he was wearing a toupee. And look, you can see the Velcro, and he would get so annoyed. But then also another part of his very strict diet was his diet, and he had 11 almonds on his desk, and he had an apple, and he had a Nutri-Grain bar, and they would eat it at certain times of the day. Well, and a banana. The banana, I still to this day have several pics of him eating banana, and he got to the point where he would bring a sheet of paper,
yep,
and he would hold up the paper
hold
as he
up
was
a magazine or something
yeah,
in front
and
of his
take a bite of it because he was that tormented. But it was funny.
Like any small unit, you have to learn that if you're going to be a target, right, you have to either be able to take it or give it back, right? Yeah. And if you let any weakness show, especially in this environment, the sharks are going to circle, right?
Yeah.
And we had one in particular that he could not take it. So, of course, everything was heaped on him, right?
Yeah, he had a lot of missiles heaped on him.
A bunch, right? And so we had a lot of good. I can't get into too many of those stories, but we had a lot of good times with that too.
One thing I wasn't there for this, but I remember y'all telling me about this house on Colonial. You're approaching this dope house, and as y'all got closer to it, I guess a pit bull was on a chain underneath the house, underneath the porch, and just come darting out and sprinting towards y'all. Everybody just, oh shit, and goes running back. Well, poor Travis, he runs. He turns around, and as soon as he turns around, he's face to face with a crepe myrtle.
It was like a Looney Tunes episode.
Yeah, and
right?
he just bounced off.
Right,
his shoulder hits, and y'all describe it. He bounces off and falls down. My understanding, there's not one teammate that went over there and lent a hand to pick that man up.
We were laughing too hard.
Well, there were some of y'all that ran back to the squad car to try to hit record.
I did.
Yeah, you did, to try to hit record and have it on video.
So back then, our camera system, right, it was relatively new. This was back when dash cam was kind of new, right?
AVL was new.
And right, all that was new. So from downloading those videos, I knew that if you activate the emergency equipment, it'll go back, what was it, 30 seconds, just like our body cams do, right? And so that car I knew would capture the whole thing. So instead of helping him, I'm laughing the whole way, like I'm got tears coming down my eyes, and I go running over there and I hit the lights, and then of course again we're trying. Nobody's helping him at this point.
No, he's laying there with shoulder hurt.
Right, and we're trying to see if it caught the video, but unfortunately, Knights didn't download that car, and it would only record so much. So we still don't have a video.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
That's unfortunate. And, that, and I can't go into all the details because, we are classy people, but there's a video of like involved a 50-gallon drum of fecus and urine that was in the middle of a very dilapidated
vacant
house. Yes. And there is a video of that is it's under lock and key, but it is
remember when you bought before Amazon was a thing, you bought like this little noise beeping thing.
Oh yeah,
the Noyatron,
and put it in the cubicles in the back with the sergeants.
Yeah, the Noyatron. Yeah, I got actually when I went to South Central, I carried that with me to torment Foy with it.
It would beep every like
randomly,
5 minutes.
Randomly, and you could not tell where it was coming from. Yeah, I got Foy with that good.
Or the cat, we stuck it in French's desk.
Oh yeah, it was like a Halloween cat that
had a sensor on it.
Yeah, it had a sensor and it'd go. It like you walk by and it would like just go crazy.
And he's looking around like,
yeah, what the hell is going on?
Hear this cat meowing.
Yeah, we had a good time, but also when it was time to work, we got locked in. Emily, you going to jump in on this?
I was just going to say, along with a lot of the jokes, they did a lot of competition as well. One time, Danny called me to come up to work because they were having a race of some sort.
Oh, boy, yes.
So 2 teammates on the team were arguing about who could run a mile and a half faster, and we had plotted it out that they're going to run down to the not Lake June. What the exit down there?
I think it was Lake June from the station in a circle and come back.
And circle and come back. And this was a big deal. Like this is the first thing at start of shift. We're going to have this race, and they came in early and warmed up, and we had been talking about it, and she wanted to see it, so she came down to watch this race between these 2 guys. And kind of a sad ending. One of them didn't make the turnaround and couldn't run back.
Petered out quick.
He ate Jack in the Box before. For his pre-workout, or his pre-race
tacos.
meal, he had Jack in the Box tacos, and so he didn't finish the race.
Yeah, well, another race that I remember that very disappointed in Candelaria is that Bacon's a good-sized man. Okay, him and Candelaria were sprinting a 100-yard dash in the back parking lot. And
somewhere there's a photo.
There was a video of that.
I have a still photo of Mark with his hands raised.
Just so you know, I had strategized that. I'm like, I'm gonna come off slow off the start and then make up ground 50 yards.
Because going slow.
God didn't bless you with wheels.
I was like,
so I don't know what to tell you.
I was like, man, that was a bad strategy.
Going slow is, I don't know if that's ever a strategy in a race, but start off slow.
Yeah,
always works, right?
And you didn't realize the big man had some wheels.
I was like, okay, yeah, he's not slowing down.
Man,
okay,
if Mark was at the combine, a big man like that, I was thoroughly impressed seeing him lumber through that parking lot and beat Candy. But yeah, there was videos of that we no longer have. Kind of like that voicemail. Maybe one day I'll find it somewhere.
We could reenact it.
I think we can reenact that.
We'll
now.
find some actors.
No,
Yeah.
I would tear every hammy and no way. There's no way, not today.
We talked earlier about the importance of report writing and how serious we took it, right? And we did. We really, and that was something that I believe. I know that documenting what you do is super important, and I kind of started that literally because I had a deputy chief on my ass, and I was going to show them I knew what I was doing, and kind of carried it through the rest of my time on the streets. Well, another thing that I took seriously was is courtroom testimony, and we were always in drug court because that was August 1 was the one that always handles the narcotic cases, and the DAs were basically talking about that nobody knows how to articulate things. A lot of officers know they know what they're doing. They just can't articulate it on the stand, right? So I put together a little makeshift courtroom testimony class, and everybody went through it. And we had Sergeant the Grant brothers in there, or maybe another sergeant would sit in just to kind of add some added stress. And we went through it, and it kind of was like us on one side of the table, and the officer that was going through it on the other side. And I like to think that we had some value in that.
Oh, it's hugely helpful, right? So back then, when any drug tracer in Dallas will tell you this, that you would guarantee every Monday you were down at court, right? And there was a court specifically for drug cases called Auxiliary 1, and we all called it Aux 1 for short. And you knew that you were going to have a subpoena every Monday to be down at court. And when you would walk in down there, everybody was there. You would see narcotics, SWAT, you would see all the different dope chasing groups, because we were down there for all kinds of different things, motion to suppress, any kind of court hearing you can think of. Examining trials, all of that, right? And so we don't, as a department, really didn't put too much effort into testifying, especially in these cases. So I had a lot of experience in disruption doing that, but there were times I was tripped up on the stand, right? Because I didn't have any kind of training to help me out on what the defense attorney was trying to do, even though what I had done was perfectly legal, right? The defense attorney was able to trip me up a couple times. So Joe, when I came down and you said, "Hey, we got this class," I thought it was a great idea, right? And I really learned a lot there, a lot that even now, from my narcotics experience, I testify as an expert now with Dallas County still, and I still use a lot of those techniques that I learned early on.
Yeah, and it's just the little things. It's the little things that officers do every day, and any officer out there that's working in any agency, the laws and the rulings are all the same that we follow. But ask yourself, if somebody asks you, what are the 3 prongs of the plain view doctrine, and can you recite them?
The Aguilar test, yeah.
Yeah, and what is the definition of probable cause? Ask yourself that. You do it every day. Every time you arrest somebody, you got to use it.
Yeah, and I can remember my court testimony class with you. That was the first question you asked about, what is probable cause? And I was like, oh man, what is the definition, the courtroom definition of probable cause? And I got stumbled. I know what it is when I see it, right?
Right.
But then to articulate it was like a whole nother thing, and then.
And I've actually, after that class, was asked that question by a defense attorney, right?
I have been too.
And as soon as they asked it, I was thinking immediately, like, thank God we talked about this, because I would have been like you. I would have just been, I know what it is, sure, right? But I would have been stumbling, and that doesn't look good in front of a jury, right?
And think about it from the juror standpoint, or the judge's point of view. The judge, they know you know what you're doing. But if you have a 12 jury member sitting up there and you're stuttering and stammering over something that you use to put this person in jail, your credibility is going to go south in a hurry.
Well, they think you're supposed to be, right? You are a professional, and they think you are
barely.
Yeah. Right.
Barely professional.
And here you are stumbling through a definition of the most basic concept of law enforcement, which is probable cause.
Right.
But you stress that. You stress case law, which I never delved into case law until I came into CRT. And then I even pulled this up on my phone from January 2015, exigent circumstances, right?
Yes.
I mean, how to write it, how to read it, how to say it, articulate it. I mean, to this day, it still sits on my phone just in case, I decide to go back out there.
Yeah.
This stuff really doesn't take a whole lot of effort, right? It's not like we were studying all the time. It's just you just have to care enough to study up on it and then challenge yourself to formulate words and then get put on the stand. And as a result, we had a pretty good relationship with that DA's office. First name basis, familiar faces. They expected us up there. They knew our work schedule. They would try and get us on the stand quickly so we could go back out there and go kick doors because they knew we wanted to be out there having fun.
I can call Andrew Novak today, and he would know who I am.
Absolutely.
I still get text messages from him like, hey, can you come in and testify as an expert witness? No. I don't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I can't be one of those guys, but yeah. Or even text messages on, what does this street lingo mean? Those DAs still have our contacts.
Yeah.
What does 6'7" mean?
Oh, God.
No, I knew that was important because everything that I was putting into that class is something I had experienced myself in the courtroom. Like I actually had a judge on a motion to suppress ask me, what is your definition of exigent circumstances? I had one of the prosecutors actually ask me, officer, what is probable cause? But I had already been teaching this class and I could spit it out really quickly. And I even told him, I said, hey man, you need, he goes, no, you did great. I said, I know, but you need to be careful asking a lot of other people this. And any officers out there that are listening, you really need to be able to define what probable cause is because you never know when you're going to ask. And if you're up there stuttering and stammering and have failed somehow and you cannot answer that, the jury is going to look at you like you're full of shit.
That goes for any common terms that you use in your reports, like the furtive gesture thing and
right.
Everything that you type regularly, you need to understand and be able to explain.
Yeah, one site that I think that and I actually looked at it. It's been a minute since I looked at it, but it's caselaw4cops.net, and it's got a 4, caselaw4cops.net. It has a very, easy to read breakdown of all the major search and seizure, protective sweeps, the Maryland versus Bowie, and also has all the new cases and a layman's term breakdown of what it means and how it affects you. I really strongly recommend people take a look at that.
I still have a Google alert set up for any Fourth Amendment cases. And there was just, a recent one in dealing with confidential informants. And I sat there Sunday like a nerd and read, 30 minutes of what that means for us. So from learning that with you were really the first one that taught me that what they teach you in the academy is okay to get you to a certain point, but you have to take it. It's on you to take it further. And I didn't know what case law, how that, really what it meant for law enforcement. And it kind of gives us a blueprint of what we can do legally. And the courts have decided, hey, you can do this or you can't do this, right? And if you know that, you're going to be so much a better officer that you won't. A lot of times you may not even make it to the stand if you write a good report and you know what you're doing.
Good point.
And I tell you what, if you're up there staggering in the controlled questions that the prosecutor asks you before you even get to the facts of the case, if you're up there having a hard time explaining yourself and what you do, how long have you been on, and what is a normal day like for you, and also before you get to the facts, the defense attorney is over there studying you and they're listening to you. They're not going to leave you on the stand very long if you're weak, if you're strong. They want to get you off there quick because you're going to make them look bad.
And one of the best things you can do to start off right is just have a well-formulated introduction for yourself of your credibility. So the first time you speak, you sound like you are a professional and credible, and that establishes you in that courtroom.
Turn the radio off. Actually, almost like rehearse it like an actor rehearsing his or her lines. Say it, speak it. Think about what you're going to say.
I just think we do a terrible job as a department teaching not just young officers in general. We stress all these things during core cycle, and we don't.
We can always do it better.
We don't prep on what they do on a daily basis, which is put bad guys in jail.
Well, the report writing, right? What Kent was talking about, I spent a little bit of time in our case filing unit in narcotics, right? So you kind of get to read reports from all over the city that all patrol officers make of dope arrest, anything that, involves narcotics. And it's the same thing over and over again, right? We teach these kids that the first thing that you put in there is your reason for contact, right? Okay, so it could be a traffic violation. On this date and time, I pulled over this car for this traffic violation. And then that led me to what you're talking about. Hey, I saw furtive gestures. Well, what does that mean? They don't ever put it in there, add any more articulation. And then it led me to this. And then I put it in weighed it and put it in the property room. That's it, right? And then I remember early on, Joe, I don't know if you remember this, but you were showing me like a lot of different ways to write a better report. And one of the things you showed me was it was a case law that had come out of Texas that a trooper, it was from a state trooper here, and his report was excellent. Like he stopped this car and he described how this person was nervous, where we would typically say the driver was nervous and give no additional detail. This trooper talked about the hand was trembling, the voice was shaky. I could see that, they were moving around the car very quickly, appeared to be very uncomfortable. And I started looking at that and I was like, I was taught that we don't put any detail in the report. You don't put any detail in the report. Yeah. So after that, I was like, I'd write a novel, right? Because the more you put in that report, that's another layer that when that defense attorney starts to prepare and they look at that and they may say, I don't know if this is one that we actually want to fight.
Well, also know that every circumstance, but a lot of officers, young officers or older officers, they have buzzwords they get in their mind. They feel they need to use it every single time, right? Like, I am sorry that if you just have a year on the streets or even 2 years on the streets, if you use that buzz phrase in my training and experience, a good defense attorney will sit there and go, officer, you mentioned this here. What experience do you have? Okay, you did 9 months in the academy. Okay. Well, how many times you did X amount on training? What is all your vast experience and knowledge of the, and you could really look bad because somebody a trainer told you to put that in there. It's not always applicable. Yeah. I remember one. We're not going to mention the name, but it was not a high point in my career. Candelaria was actually the only one there. Mark and Danny, they were in court, actually doing real court work, and I ran somebody through the courtroom testimony class, and I got a little upset. Do you remember that, Brian?
Yeah. So to back up, that officer approached me. He said, "Hey, Candy, do you know about this court testimony?" Because he thought you were coming after him personally. So I was like, yeah, we all go through it. It's part of like new guy training. Plus, it's good stuff. And he thought you were just targeting him. So he kind of went in there with a different mindset already. And you had your papers ready. Like this was a mock trial,
and both grants were there.
And you do the whole setup. You start off with, "Hi, I'm so and so. I'm the prosecutor on this case." And you ask this officer, "Please state your name for the record." And he kind of gives you this look like, "What do you mean? You know my name." It's hard because I don't want to say his name because I repeat what he said. But he was like, so he stated his name, and you were just so mad because he was like, and then you. I
asked him, "Where do you work?" Because that is something a prosecutor. Where do you work? I work for the Dallas Police Department, or I work at the Southeast Patrol Division.
And he's like, "Dallas Police."
Yeah.
And then Joe's like, "Man, fuck this. I'm out. Yeah. I'm out. I've tried. I've had enough of this. This guy's got a shitty attitude. He doesn't want to be here." And that's when Sergeant Grant's like, "No, Joe.
No. You gotta know.
He's like, finish the thing. You're like, "No, fuck this." Blah, blah.
Well, do you remember when I tried to get myself back on track?
Yeah.
And I couldn't. Then I go, "Fuck this, Candy, you do it." And I slid the paper, and Grant was like, "No, Joe, you're gonna do it, and he's gonna listen." No, I was so mad. In retrospect,
I grabbed the paper and I start reading, and he goes, "No, damn it, Joe, you're gonna read this."
That was Grant being the most assertive you'll see him. But in retrospect, I maybe should have taken a break. But going back even further, I got a call from one of the drug court prosecutors about testimony that he gave recently It was really bad.
Yeah.
And I had the mindset that if somebody's on our team, it's reflective of the team if they're given shitty testimony in court. And that's what made me want to do this class with that person.
And so after the court testimony with that officer, I went with him and Robin to lunch at Gloria's. You know, Gloria's used to be kind of like a little...
How was his appetite?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
No. So obviously you didn't go to that lunch, and he's stressed out. You know, he's grabbing his head. He's like, man, I don't... He really thought it was a personal attack against him. And he's, you know, he had a country accent. He's like, Candy, you know, I don't know why he's picking on me. I mean, and he says, I mean, and there's a long pause. And you know me, I just can't let it go to waste. So I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? It's not time to play, Candy. Joe's trying to come after me. I don't know. It's not time to play.
Yeah. Well, he came back to the station and we talked, and I think we got an understanding of what that was about. Then we're fine.
Yeah.
And you already apologized for all this beforehand.
That's right.
Like
we
an hour ago.
We forgave you.
Yeah.
We forgave you.
Yeah, he does too.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. No, he's a nice guy.
I will say Joe knows what he's doing, and I think that he's happy to impart his knowledge. And I think he really does want to lift everybody up around him if he thinks they're not wasting his time. And if he feels like someone is wasting their time or not taking it seriously, that's where I think he struggles.
I was about to say something very similar. So the difference is being a professional, right? You've always been a professional. I've always tried to be a professional. Everybody sitting here that I know personally are professionals at this, right? This job means a lot to me. I try to get better at this job. My reputation, like you used to always say, my reputation means a lot here, right? So I don't want to do it half-ass. I don't want to take half measures. I want to learn. And when people don't, I agree with you, Joe. You were a little baby more explosive than me, but I was the same way. Like, even when I was in narcotics, you know, I was known as that guy that whenever it was time to train and I saw all this squirrel stuff going on and everybody's joking around, I'd get pissed and I'd start yelling at people, you know, and I'm like, we're here to do a job. We can do all that grab assing later, but we're here to do a job and we need to get it done. Right. So you weren't out of line. It was just that we just had some folks here that weren't on that same level.
Yeah, I think people would probably say the same about me in SWAT. Like the others who came on after me, that's one thing I probably knew. I was probably getting pretty grumpy, but it's also that standard you have in your mind, and you want everyone to at least get as close as they can to meeting that, because we all reflect each other and we reflect the unit or the team.
Yeah, it mattered to me that, honestly, a lot of it, because if something went bad, I believed that it was going to go back on Sergeant Grant. And I cared too much for that guy. And even after Chief Elsie left, she retired, Mike Coleman became chief of Southeast. And I cared about that guy. And I really tried to not take such a selfish approach that my actions, our actions as a team, if we screw up, it is going to make those folks look bad or get them in trouble where they have to. Because I've seen it before. I've seen supervisors, because of bonehead mistakes, and everybody makes mistakes, I get it, but because of not being prepared. And, you know, going back to the case law, we've seen a lot of young officers get in trouble for doing certain things. A lot of it's drug-related. But when I look at the cases that they got in trouble on in their work, I really believe, had they known law better, they could have made it work, as opposed to learning X amount in the academy and then trying to live off that the rest of your career. They were cutting corners because they didn't know the other little laws that we had in our utility belt. That is a big misstep, I think, in all of policing. Is you got to be continually learning and evolving, and don't take what 8-hour class you had and then just run with it for the rest of your career, because there's more to it. And people change, laws change, public perception changes, and it all comes into play when you're doing any police work.
Well, and Kristen will know what I'm talking about here, because she's been an investigator for a long time now. You get the same way when you get into investigation bureau, right? There's this attitude of, well, we've always done it that way. Well, why are you doing it that way? And how many times have you heard, or I've heard, well, we can't do that. Well, yes, we can. The law says we can do that, right? Oh, no. And you get into these huge arguments with people, but it's that same mentality of like, I don't ever want to be better at what I do. So I just naturally assume that we can't do that, right? And then somebody comes along, well, look at this punk trying to, stir the pot. Well, I actually know what the case law says, and we can do this.
Well, a lot of people, a lot of commanders, especially, they never did that type of work. They don't understand it, so they immediately say no or say it's wrong. And
that's what we had at Southeast.
Yes, they're at the end.
They're at the end.
Yeah.
Even when they, I guess, conceded that we were legal in what we were doing, it was then just don't do it then.
Yeah, they just basically, and that's when I decided to leave.
Yeah,
but nothing lasts forever.
No.
So I do want to talk about some notable cases that we had. Won't mention any names, obviously, but I want to hit on the Tiger case of how that literally was started from scratch, from a bunch of yahoos in uniform going to multiple locations and putting a puzzle piece together for a huge crime network in South Dallas.
Yeah.
Well, that was the other thing that you was a big learning curve for me. You were good at putting this stuff together, right? And on the intel side of it, that's where another thing I had to learn was, hey, it's easy to go out in a division like Southeast and make an arrest. But what kind of information are you putting together behind the scenes, right? Are we linking these together? And so when we got into this case and we actually start linking some people together, we linking some houses together.
Cars.
And and
doing surveillance, contacting other agencies that had cases connected in other cities. Yeah.
And you start looking at we had the tree of all the people connected, right?
It's like a family tree of drug dealers.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like, we're literally living an episode of The Wire here, right? I mean, that was cool. It was like I had never done anything like this before.
And it was fun, and we were utilizing other partners like DPS. Having a lieutenant in DPS and narcotics division was also a big help. They actually helped us greatly with pole cams, giving us full access, trash pulls. I mean, we were making a living off that, and I remember our narcotics division here was a little late to the game. They jumped on at the end, and we ended up hitting several locations all one morning. And one of the main targets, and I remember making him a pet project. We jacked him up at a house so we had already hit the house, took the guys to jail. Well,
you and I decided to stay inside the house,
right,
and see who comes back.
And he showed up, and this guy his nickname was Tiger. Big old dude, dreads, and he shows up wearing a road worker vest. And I think that was part of his bit. He would dress like that to me, like he's a working guy, blah, blah, blah. But he was he was the muscle. And I think that he had actually, he had done time for murdering somebody, manslaughter, I believe. So ran across him. We didn't have anything other than he was running his mouth when we contacted him, and then we ended up, he had tickets out, took him to jail for the tickets. He ran his mouth the whole way to detox, kept talking shit. He was telling me that he's going to have my job. He knew some city council people. He knew Chief Brown. He was going to have my job. And I made a point that day that you're now off the back burner. You're on the front burner, and I'm going to turn that shit up. And I'm going to focus on you and what you're doing, and we're not going to stop until we get you.
And we did.
Yeah. And I remember Danny kind of had the early part of this, but Danny went to narcotics, and then he was a huge asset there because he was helping us from the narcotic standpoint. And then I remember busting in that house on Rochester early in the morning with DPS, and they actually used C4 on the house.
Yeah, they did explosive breaching. I think that was probably the first time you had seen that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a good deal, but it really was just, it was paying attention and putting it all together and doing it the right way.
And to throw something in here for those that don't know, we did this in full uniform.
Yeah.
We didn't. It's not like we had the ability to run a confidential informant ourselves. Even write search warrants. We didn't have that ability based on DPD policy, right? So we did all of this in uniform with, a very limited, we could get into a covert car but it was very limited on what we could do with that. So 95% of this was in just guys in full uniform out doing this. And we really put some cases together that were better than even the unit that's assigned to, combat drugs in the city called narcotics. I'll put that out.
Well, even Delta Plaza. I mean, you guys remember that?
Oh yeah, we got those administrative warrants.
Yeah. I mean, that was.
Well, Danny was in narcotics at the time, and most of that was a big seized property. But the one apartment that we did get into, you had to write a warrant to come in, and we were out there all day anyway. There was the whole place. This complex was shaped. It was like a square, right? And they had 4 entries, and all of them had these basically locked doors, burglar bars, to even get into the courtyard to go to these apartments to buy dope. They called it New Jack City.
Yep.
And we had worked with the community. The city attorneys and the community leaders over there, and we got administrative warrants.
That's right.
But the only one we got was, and Danny had to get that warrant for the one door, knuckleheads. But there were people flying out of windows upstairs, dropping out.
Oh yeah.
But we got, I'll post some pictures. We have a bunch of 50-something guns out of that place. All those apartments.
I thought it was closer to 100.
You know what? I think you're right. And then several kilos of cocaine and money and PCP and weed. I mean, there was pills. There was so much on that. And yeah, that was a good one. And it was all done from the uniform level. And one thing I'll talk about, Mark, you mentioned working from a uniform capacity, is that you have to establish reasonable suspicion to probable cause and explain potentially exigent circumstances to protect the sweeps. And there's a lot you have to detail, A, B, C, D, E, which in narcotics, sometimes you could send a CI to go stagger up there to buy some rocks a couple of times, and you go from A to D really quickly because you have a search warrant, a full-blown search and hit of the house. But when you're in full uniform, you have to explain a lot more and be a lot more detailed, and connect a lot more dots.
Yeah, for 30 seconds of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just a lot of steps you have to describe. And Mark, I remember we were talking offline about on Goldie, in that house off of.
I believe we were on Jamaica.
It was Jamaica, close to 2nd Avenue. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we go over there, and we had seen this guy in a couple different places. But it was one of those, you start putting dots together, and you're like, he's got to be connected to some of these other houses. And we went up on the house, and I was standing, and obviously I'm tall, and I could see down into how the window was open. I could see in there,
and there was a doorbell back in the back door,
right? Yeah,
or back window.
And that's when we first realized, okay, we're on the opposite end of this, right? They're buying from the other side, and this door is probably least used, right? So we were actually, even though somebody was going back there, we were actually thinking about going around and looking over there, but it turned out that I could see perfectly into that window, and there's just a big cookie of crack, right? And for those, again, that don't know, crack's very easy to make. It's literally 1 part cocaine and 1 part baking soda, and most often they put it in a pot, right? And so it is circular like the pot, and it'll be the size of whatever the pot was, right? That makes any sense. And it was just laying there drying, and immediately said, "Man, it's right there." And the chase was on, right?
Well, I remember the guy that we come to know as Goldie. He actually stepped foot in that room, saw you, and took off towards the front, and that was it. You and I made entry in the back. He ran out, and Travis was the only one with us. He was at the front, and so I was actually Goldie and 2 other people come barreling out of the front door, and we had to chase them down the street and get them.
Yeah, but that was just typical of a lot of the arrests we made.
Yeah.
It was just that immediate dump of adrenaline, right? And that lasted, 30 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on what we were doing. And then we would all regroup, and we'd go do our arrest report, and everybody would start crashing. Because I can't tell you how many times I'd be typing on the computer at jail, and I'm starting to crash out a little bit because I had all this adrenaline just a minute ago, and I'm coming back down, right? So, but talking about how we trauma bonded again, that's the way it is.
Yep.
Yeah, so one of the other cases that we did, I think it was actually the first case, one of the first that we actually put together a network.
Spiderwebbed it out.
Yeah, and it was mainly on pills. It was kind of a diversion case, but we had some top level dealers in South Dallas hemmed up in this. And I remember Chief Elzy insisting that we take that information to narcotics, right? Which, honestly, we probably should have with as much information we had. And I remember we had a meeting. We had it laid out professionally. I don't know if you remember, Joe, but we had a PowerPoint.
No, I remember.
And we had everything laid out. And like you said before, I was looking around the room at the detectives that were in there in this meeting, and I could tell that they were not at all interested in this case. And so we left there, and we didn't really have a good feeling about it. Well, Elzy made us follow up, and we scheduled another meeting. What was that, maybe a month later? And we go up, and we have this meeting, and they asked us all the same questions again. So it was clear in that month time that they had not only had they not done anything with the case, they didn't even bother to take any notes on the first one. So you lost your mind, is just the tame way I could think of it. I remember looking at you in the room, and your face was bright red, and I was like, oh no, he is going to lose his mind. And so we storm out of there. You didn't say a word. That was another cue. I was like, yeah, he's really angry. He didn't say a word. And so we're on the way back. You and I are riding together. We're on the way back to Southeast, and we're going to go tell Elzy about this, Chief Elzy. And your phone rang. You remember that? And it was one of the supervisors up there. I'm not going to mention any names.
Yeah, one of the sergeants.
Yeah. And you just laid into a tirade on him. You just let everything that was built up in you just pour out on the phone. You were cussing him, calling him everything under the sun. And the whole time I'm over there, like, I don't know if you remember, but I was like hitting your arm saying, slow down. But you just couldn't. You just let it go. And we have laughed about that over the years. Like, I don't know what that supervisor thought of it, but it is one of the funniest moments you and I had together, man. It was funny.
Yeah, we were actually, I remember you punching me in the shoulder, and you were like, kind of like putting your hand down, palm of your hand down, like, calm down, ease up. Yeah, but that was kind of the norm, though, in working with some people up in that unit, and there was a lot of disappointment, because here we had a case that we worked up at a street level. We knew every player, we knew the locations, and you hand somebody something on a silver platter that our deputy chief, who used to be in narcotics, wanted us to go and give them, and for them not to give a shit. Yeah, I took it personal.
Yeah, I did too. I think all of us did. And we carried it back to Chief Elzy, and rightfully so. She went through the roof as well. And then we started working with DPS, because DPS was more than happy to get that from us.
Yes.
And in my opinion, the success of that case is what caused narcotics to pay attention to the case we just referenced with Tiger.
Yes, absolutely.
I think had that not happened, narcotics would have given us kind of the same cold shoulder at that time.
Probably.
But it also benefited us when you guys went to narcotics, you and Danny.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you guys went there, then you guys were our contact points at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, I can quickly write a warrant, and Mark could too, and so you just buzz us, and we have an idea. Like, we know what kind of work you all were doing after we left, and we know that it's not bullshit. And yeah,
I remember one time we were actually out convoying, and we went down Southland, and I was on the phone with Danny talking about some other house. Well, we went by this one house that was almost at Southland and the service road of CF Hahn, and I saw somebody see us and go jogging back to the front door, and I said, "Somebody, I gotta go." And I thought that I hung the phone up. Well, the phone was in my pocket. Ended up chasing the guy through the house, locking the house down, and the first thing I do is grab my phone, pick it up to call Danny. And as soon as I picked it up, the phone was never turned off. So he was listening to all this from the phone. And the first thing he asked me was, "Do you need a warrant?"
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I could go on about this, for hours, but going back to the very beginning, talking about how this department, especially some of our leadership here, has always looked at dope chasing as bad or negative. But at the same time, I've seen these units, and CRT was one of them, that made careers, right? That made these middle management, they made their careers. Sometimes, kicking and screaming in a lot of ways because they didn't provide us any help at all. But because we gave them so much numbers, they got promoted to, this or that. And, that was always kind of the that weird yin and yang of this whole thing was some of them didn't like it, but boy, they wouldn't hesitate to get promoted by it.
Somewhere I have a sheet of our numbers for like a 2 or 3 year span. I'll have to dig it out, maybe see if I can find it. But I think people would be surprised by the numbers of the amount of drugs, guns, and cash that we seized on that team. Number of arrests, too.
Yeah, it was substantial for a little ragtag uniform unit.
I think the CRTs are still kind of occasionally underutilized, and I think they're in a really good position because you're in the same place, you're in the same area, you're in the same station, and I think they're in a really good position to be able to do a lot with that. And it really just depends on the team still on how much they utilize it and how much they don't. But can you guys give kind of your final thoughts on what working on this team and working with each other has meant to you guys?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Well, just from my experience, starting off as a young punk, 20-something-year-old kid, but having somebody like Joe kind of lead the way and having that mentorship, and showing me what it is to really like go all in on your abilities, go all in on what you're doing, be a professional, know your job, know it well, do it well. I know that that's made me who I am today. And I think when you look around the table here, you see, what has it been? Over 10 years, 12, 13 years later, Bacon's a sergeant over the mayor's detail. Canete's leading the way over in SWAT, and then now in tactical training. Joe, you're here in wellness, doing incredible things. I mean, I think everybody on that team, if they're still here today, has benefited in their career from that team and where they're at today, in their career. But for me, having that structure so early on and now implementing it as a sergeant now over the range, we were talking about working in small groups and small dynamics and people having different personalities and managing that, having somebody like Sergeant Grant to mentor me. I didn't know I was going to be a sergeant, 13 years later, but having something to reference and use as a guide now as a supervisor, I would never take that time back. It's probably the most fun I've had on this career. Most kicked in so many doors with Kevlar vests and pistols and so many jokes, practical jokes, that we played on each other. Man, what a time, and then, and then once everything kind of, you started seeing the team kind of dissipate a little bit. I know Danny and Mark went on to do bigger and better things in narcotics and SWAT. And Joe ended up leaving in 2016.
It was 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I already had made my plans to try out for SWAT, and so that was kind of my path. But I don't think any of that was relevant to who I was or anything unless I was a part of that team. And so I'm really thankful for all the friends that I've made there. Yeah, you guys aren't even friends. You guys are brothers. But, it was probably the highlight of my career there at Southeast with these guys at CRT.
Yeah, for me, that time period really is easily the most fun I had. I don't say that lightly, that I would have paid to come into work back then. Like the fun we had, I never wanted to take off, to be honest. Like I didn't want to miss out on anything. We always had such a good time. We were doing such good work to the point that even now, if I could work with you guys again and we could go back and do it all over again, trust me, I would, right? I do have a regret about that. I think, in my opinion, I left probably 2, maybe 3 years too early. I wish I would have hung on a little more. I think it's easy as a police officer in any department, no matter where you're at, to start getting down on things. You think, hey, I'm not being treated fairly, or this isn't going as well as it used to be anymore. And I was letting a lot of these little problems get to me to the point where I was like, you know what, I already want to try this other thing, so I'm going to start putting in and see if I could do that. And honestly, I think had I stayed just a couple more years, I still would have had a blast, and we still would have been able to operate, and have a good time like we were. But I had so much fun with you guys. And, to quote an old line on the movie Hoosiers, I'm a big basketball fan. At the very end, he says, "I love you guys." That's really the way it is you guys will always be friends no matter where I go in this department. I talk to you guys a lot, and I just had a great time, and it's something that I will tell my boys about when they get older. Maybe let them listen to the podcast. That's one good thing about this. When they get older, they don't even know Daddy's a police officer. So it's always going to be with me. So I had a good time.
No, I feel the same as far as the family aspect that we kind of cultivated. The good and the good days and the bad days. I mean, there was many of those, but being in a position to make, just lifelong friends. Going to work every day, knowing our reputation, living up to that reputation, and knowing we were the very best. And no offense to anybody else, because I don't care. Start your own podcast and talk about your team. We were the very best at what we did. And the people that we butted heads with, they're still family. And we were extremely effective. And now seeing that everybody in this room that was part of that just excelled in their career. And they're in, y'all are in spots that people would kill to be on and be over. And to be able to work on the ground floor of these amazing people and careers, work alongside of them, and them draw the best out of me. And I like to think that I drew the best out of them, even though I had different ways of doing it. That means a lot to me. And that's why the family that is from Southeast CRT will always be my family. And I'll always be appreciative of you guys.
So I left the team sooner than I wanted to, but it was because I had a plan. I really wanted to be on SWAT, and I knew that I needed to have more exposure with other officers and kind of get myself around so people understood who I was. So kind of against what I really wanted to do, I went to that damn unit called narcotics that Mark has been talking about, and that's how things were supposed to play out. But I've always said that the time on CRT were the best years I know I'll probably ever have on the department. And Brian and I were in SWAT, and that is a very close second. Like there's a lot of similarities there, but I think just being younger and those being formative years as a police officer, not only did I learn just doing the CRT stuff and chasing dope, but just overall working on a small team, understanding better this job as a police officer. We got into talking about courtroom testimony and dealing with the dynamics of the people you work with and the leadership you have. And I feel sad for these next generation of officers because I feel like we probably caught the very end of the best years of policing ever. And maybe that's not totally true, but it's very likely true that policing will never be the same. I consider it fortunate that for all the dangerous things and stupid and crazy things we did, we were able to balance it with humor. And you couldn't ask for a better career or a job where you're taking that kind of excitement, working with people, and then balancing it with the most fun and humor you can have. This job was a total privilege, especially to work with individuals who are better than me and more talented than me. and that I have respect for. And I know you guys all share the same sentiment, that what a blessing to be able to be with people that we respect and that we can continue to call friends and family.
Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Down when you're lonely, I'll pull you up. Life leaves you heavy when the going gets tough. I'll be your shoulder, together we'll run up from the bottom, yeah, we'll rise above. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. I'll never give up on you. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far, for the gold and the blue, I will never give up on you.